Masamune was a high school student, handsome and well-built. That morning, right after taking a shower, he stood in front of the mirror, admiring his own figure. He couldn't help but praise his own face and body until he realized that his younger sister, Chinatsu, was in his room. Chinatsu teased her brother, saying he was too narcissistic. Masamune denied it, insisting that he wasn't, and instead commented on how Chinatsu was already eating chips so early in the morning. He wondered why Chinatsu kept entering his room without permission, despite his repeated warnings. Chinatsu, on the other hand, was puzzled about why Masamune seemed to ignore their sibling bond ever since they had lived apart for a while. Masamune looked at an old photo of himself and swore that he would never again become the timid, weak boy he once was. Not long after, their mother, Kinyue, entered the room and told them she had already prepared breakfast. Every dish she made was packed with calories because she believed it would spark Masamune's appetite. But Masamune refused to eat. Kinyue immediately looked hurt, thinking that her son must hate her, especially now that they were living under the same roof again. Chinatsu suspected the real reason was because Masamune had already lost a lot of weight compared to before. Without touching the food, Masamune decided to leave for school. Instead, he chose to drink some milk, explaining that he just couldn't eat high-calorie food in the morning. At that time, his personal motto was simple. The most important thing was to be handsome because good-looking people were special. On his way to school, several female students turned their heads to look at him. Passing by the tennis courts, he paused for a moment to watch a few girls practicing. Suddenly, 3 of them started scolding an awkward-looking boy who they thought had been taking pictures of them. The boy nervously insisted that he had only been texting on his phone. One of the tennis players then recognized Masamune as the new transfer student from last week and invited him to join their practice. Masamune politely turned her down. More girls began to gather around, admiring how high his entrance exam scores were and how well he had played in sports. Hearing those compliments, Masamune smiled. He then praised the girls for practicing so early in the morning, which made their faces turn red, and they shouted excitedly after hearing his kind words. That moment made Masamune even more convinced that being handsome was the key to everything, and he felt confident that his plan would work out. When he arrived in front of the school gates, he noticed a crowd forming. Everyone was talking about how Shigeo had confessed his feelings to the so-called cruel princess. Among the students, Shigeo was seen as a cool upperclassman, and many believed that even the cruel princess would eventually accept him. Soon enough, she appeared on the school rooftop. Shigeo's excitement grew, and he called out to her with a nickname, comparing her to a shy Rapunzel. He asked her to give him an answer right there in front of everyone. The cruel princess smiled and purposely used a microphone so everyone could hear. She thanked Shigeo for his confession, but explained that she had asked one of her friends to look into his background. What she discovered shocked the crowd. She revealed that Shigeo had bought a certain comic book and secretly hid it inside one of his school textbooks. The students gasped. She continued by pointing out his habit of staring at girls' arms in ways that didn't seem respectful. On top of that, she even mentioned an online fantasy story Shigeo had written, where the main character just so happened to share his name. Hearing this, many of the female students quickly distanced themselves from him. Shigeo tried to defend himself, saying it was just a misunderstanding. The cruel princess didn't stop there. She even made fun of a mole on his chest, giving him an embarrassing nickname, and boldly wrote that nickname on a long banner for everyone to see. Shigeo's confidence collapsed, leaving him humiliated in front of the entire school. Masamune, watching the whole scene, realized how ruthless the cruel princess could be. Later, Masamune headed to his classroom. He thought that this school was truly intimidating, but he reminded himself that he couldn't be discouraged over something like that. His real challenge had only just begun. Suddenly, near the staircase, he accidentally caught sight of the cruel princess again, and their eyes met. Memories from his childhood came flooding back. He remembered a time when he had confessed his feelings to a girl, only to be rejected harshly and insulted. That painful moment had haunted him in his dreams ever since. Masamune woke up startled in class, surprising his classmates. Tae, the class representative, walked up to him and pointed out how soundly he had been sleeping. Masamune already knew who she was, and Tae was glad to see how quickly he was adapting to the new school. That was when Masamune realized something. Being handsome meant that no one scolded him, even when he fell asleep in class. Not long after, Kojuro brought some food for him. Masamune thanked her warmly. She had bought him bread stuffed with noodles, which looked like it had the same amount of calories as a full lunch. Masamune thought to himself that he would just do more sit-ups later at home. Kojuro admitted that she admired how Masamune stayed humble despite his good grades and athletic skills. She was a popular student herself, and in Masamune's eyes, she seemed like someone destined to be adored. According to Kojuro, there was another student in the school whose grades were just as good as his. Right at that moment, the cruel princess appeared with her attendant. She was looking for a boy named Akio, and turned to Masamune and asked if Akio was in their class. Not long after, Akio raised his hand. The so-called sadistic princess was named Aki. She walked up to him and read aloud the love letter that Akio had sent. The letter said that Akio had fallen in love when he saw Aki looking elegant during gym class. Aki then concluded that Akio must have enjoyed staring at her legs when she wore shorts. Without hesitation, she mocked him by giving him the nickname Pudding Prince and tore the letter to pieces right in front of him. Akio was deeply embarrassed and Aki left the classroom right after. Masamune was puzzled by Aki's behavior. Kojuro explained that Aki was one of the top students in their year and also very beautiful, though her personality was completely different from Masamune's. The rumor going around was that Aki despised boys and anyone who dared to approach her would be given an insulting nickname and rejected instantly. That was why she earned the title of the sadistic princess, and her real name was Adagaki Aki. Hearing that name, Masamune was shocked. Aki was the heiress of the Adagaki group. He quickly went outside to confirm it, and sure enough, he recognized her. He never expected to meet her this soon. During the lunch break, Aki sat with a group of girls. They offered her all kinds of snacks, while Masamune observed from a distance. Just as Kojuro had mentioned, Aki was always surrounded by many attendants. She acted kindly towards Sonoka, even fixing the bow on her hair that had gone slightly crooked. According to Kojuro, many girls admired Aki because she was bold and spoke her mind openly. Out of everyone, the one truly close to Aki was Yoshino. Masamune, who had been taking notes about everything related to Aki, asked Kojuro if he knew about Aki's likes, dislikes, or habits. Kojuro admitted that he did not know much, but he had heard that Aki always ate lunch alone. And indeed, after enjoying some snacks, Aki separated from Yoshino to look for a place to eat by herself. Masamune thought Aki was like a queen, surrounded by female students but always alone at lunchtime. This made him even more interested in finding out more about her. Kojuro suggested that Masamune should probably not get involved, but Masamune reassured her not to worry. He then hurried after Aki, but unfortunately, he lost track of her. He searched the library, the classroom halls, and even up in the trees, but Aki was nowhere to be found. Then Masamune spotted Yoshino walking quickly while glancing around cautiously. This made him suspicious. Yoshino checked her surroundings again before entering the sports equipment storage room. Masamune was curious about what she was doing there and decided to follow. Inside the storage room, Eki scolded Yoshino for taking too long to buy her a pork sandwich, saying she'd been kept waiting. Masamune felt relieved he had finally found her. But then, just as he was about to step closer, a spider dropped right in front of his face. Startled, Masamune screamed and ended up barging into the storage room. He quickly smiled and apologized, saying he had wandered into the area by accident. Aki, however, did not believe him so easily. She suspected that he had been deliberately looking for her. Masamune was surprised to see that Aki was having lunch in the sports equipment room, with a meal that looked more suited for a construction worker than a refined princess. Aki told him to leave immediately. Masamune mentioned that there were plenty of sporty girls who ate just as much, but then he was shocked to realize that Aki had not only one lunchbox but also the sandwich Yoshino had just bought. Embarrassed, Aki admitted that she would get too hungry if she only ate a regular portion. She also confessed that she was prone to hypoglycemia, which meant she needed to consume a lot of sugar, and she tried hard to make sure her stomach would not growl during class. Masamune decided to excuse himself, saying he had something else to do. Before he left, Aki asked for his name and warned him not to spread what he had seen. Masamune, however, felt that he had just discovered an important secret. From that day on, Masamune started greeting Aki more often, in the hallways when she was with friends and even in the library. During gym class, Kojuro mentioned that rumors were spreading around the school. People were saying that Masamune had grown close to Aki, and some even bet that the so-called sadistic princess would eventually fall for him. Masamune thought the truth was far from what his classmates imagined. In reality, Aki had become much harsher toward him, and he wondered how such rumors had even started. He believed no one would ever believe that a beautiful girl like Aki actually ate portions big enough for a laborer. One afternoon, Aki glanced out of her classroom window and sent Masamune a note telling him to go back to his cage. Just then, a ball thrown by Kojuro accidentally hit Masamune on the head. His friends worried and suggested that he go to the student infirmary, but Masamune assured them that he was fine. After school ended, Aki's friends said goodbye and left. Aki walked ahead while Yoshino stumbled behind carrying Aki's bag. Aki called out to Yoshino, asking her to buy some food because she felt like she was about to faint. Sonoka, in her usual blunt way, ordered Yoshino to hurry and get the food. Yoshino obeyed and ran down the street toward her shop. At that moment, Aki felt puzzled. She thought her lunch portion had been more than enough, yet it seemed her body was burning calories too quickly. She grew irritated because Yoshino was taking too long to come back. Suddenly, Akio showed up and asked whether Aki was going on a date with Masamune. Clearly upset, Akio yanked Aki's long hair and scolded her for tearing up the letter he gave her, while still accepting Masamune's letter. He even said that being handsome must feel good. Aki told him to let go, but Akio lashed out, saying Aki had always looked down on others. He then pulled a pair of scissors from his pocket and held them up threateningly. Aki could only close her eyes tightly, bracing herself. Luckily, Masamune appeared just in time. He rushed forward, freed Aki's hair, and grabbed the scissors with his hand, which caused his palm to bleed. Masamune had already suspected something like this might happen because of how sharp-tongued Aki could be. When Akio saw the blood dripping, he screamed in fear and ran away. Masamune quickly turned to Aki and asked if she was hurt. Instead, Aki asked him the same question back. Masamune assured her that he was fine and felt relieved that she was safe. However, as soon as he looked at the wound on his hand, the pain hit him all at once, making him want to cry out. Still, in a way, he felt it was worth it. Not only did he know Aki's secret now, but he had also saved her, which meant she might not treat him so harshly anymore, especially since her pride would never allow her to ignore the fact that he had helped her. Masamune suggested that Aki shouldn't always look so stern, saying a girl becomes beautiful when she smiles. Hearing that, Aki's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. Back when he was a child, Masamune had been an overweight boy with a cocky attitude, making him an easy target for his classmates' teasing. At that time, Aki had once been his savior, helping him when others picked on him. But one day, everything changed. When Masamune gave her flowers, she threw them away and told him she had never liked him, cruelly giving him the nickname Pig's Foot. That day left a scar in Masamune's heart, and he swore to get revenge. His plan was to make Aki fall in love with him, reveal his true identity, and then reject her in the most elegant way possible. Masamune proudly called this his dead or love strategy. He even laughed so loudly about it that his mother and little sister overheard. The next morning, Masamune headed to school as usual. Tae greeted him and noticed his hand wrapped in bandages. When she asked what happened, Masamune said it was just an injury from his own carelessness. Tae looked doubtful but didn't press further. Soon after, Masamune ran into Akio, who looked embarrassed and apologized for what happened the day before. Masamune told him not to take it too seriously. Tae, curious about the situation, asked what was really going on, but Masamune simply called it a secret, which made the girls around him squeal with excitement. Later, Kojuro met him at the lockers. When Masamune opened his locker, a letter slipped out. Kojuro teased him, saying it was probably a love letter. But when Masamune unfolded it, the words written inside were just Pig's Foot. A wave of unease hit him. Masamune started to wonder if Aki had already figured out who he really was. After finding a letter in his locker, Masamune became curious about who had actually sent it. He glanced at each girl in his class, which startled them. Masamune wondered if it might have been Aki, but he was not convinced she would do something like that since he believed Aki was the type who preferred to embarrass others in public at the right moment. That made him question who else could possibly know about his past. Seeing Masamune looking unsettled, Kojuro asked what was going on with him, which made Masamune briefly suspect if Kojuro might have been the one. Tat also asked why his face looked so tense, but Masamune brushed it off, saying he was fine. Suddenly, a student shouted about pork feet, which shocked Masamune. However, after listening closely, he realized they were only talking about food. Masamune hated remembering the darker parts of his past. Back then, his classmates had mocked him by giving him the nickname Pig's Feet. At that moment, some of his friends approached, assuming that he was not feeling well. Masamune thought they were kind only because they saw him now as handsome. Yet he feared that if they ever learned about who he used to be, they would turn on him and treat him the same way as before. He was determined not to let that happen. When class began, Masamune struggled to focus on the lesson. His teacher asked him to read the third paragraph, and as he did, tears suddenly rolled down his cheeks. He explained that it was because of the emotional story of the Hike clan in the textbook. His classmates assumed he was just extremely sensitive. Still, Masamune kept reading, silently vowing to uncover the truth about the mysterious letter. During break, Masamune worried that if Aki ever found out about his past, his entire plan for revenge would crumble. He had gone as far as living with his grandfather and even changing his last name. All those 8 years of hard work and determination would go to waste. His stress grew so heavy that he felt stomach pains. Later, he noticed students rushing to buy bread. It was the first time he had seen such chaos. Among them was Yoshino, whose small body was pushed around in the crowd until she fell, landing right in front of Masamune. He quickly helped her up. Yoshino said it felt like fate was always cruel to her, and that she had given up on ever buying bread again. She then handed Masamune a note with her order: 5 croquettes filled with spicy peppers and 4 pork sandwiches. Masamune pushed his way through the crowd and managed to buy everything on her list. Yoshino was deeply moved when he handed them over, saying it felt like something out of a dream. She even compared Masamune to a guardian spirit statue. As Yoshino was about to leave, Masamune followed, suspecting that bread was actually for Aki. Yoshino tried to get away, but Masamune stopped her, and she quickly apologized. Masamune teased her for a moment before reassuring her that he would not cause trouble and would explain everything to Aki himself. The two then went together to meet Aki. Seeing how Yoshino acted, Masamune thought she resembled Cinderella being ordered around by a strict stepmother. He knew how that felt since he had been bullied himself in the past. When they arrived, Aki scolded Yoshino for taking too long and making her starve. Yoshino kept apologizing as Aki called her slow and careless. Yoshino handed over the bread, and Aki immediately ate it with enthusiasm. Watching from the doorway, Masamune could not understand what part of Aki seemed like a princess. Because she ate too quickly, Aki ended up choking, which set Yoshino running off to find a drink. Masamune stepped inside and asked if Aki was alright, which startled her. She looked around for Yoshino, and Masamune explained that Yoshino had gone to buy tea for her. Aki kept eating and asked why Masamune had come. He said he just wanted to check on her. Masamune was surprised to learn that Aki had eaten a large lunch before having bread. Aki then asked about his injury, and Masamune admitted it still hurt a little when showered or changed clothes, even though in reality the pain was much worse. Hearing this, Aki said she had not meant to trouble him, which made Masamune happy. To him, it meant her pride was starting to soften and making his plan progress smoothly. That convinced him she was likely not the one who had sent the letter. Aki apologized, saying what happened the previous day was her mistake. Soon after, Yoshino returned but tripped and fell again, which embarrassed her. Aki quickly covered Masamune's eyes to keep him from looking, but in doing so, she accidentally poked him in the eye. Yoshino offered him the drink she had brought, which touched Masamune. Aki commented that Yoshino always acted humble and overly polite toward everyone, to the point that it became a bad habit. She advised Yoshino not to be so nice to everyone, saying it was natural for her to treat Aki kindly since she worked for her. Masamune then pointed out that Aki had sauce on her nose, which made her flustered. Masamune admitted he was not good at being kind to everyone. He gently touched Aki's cheek and told her it would be better for her to rely on him instead of always depending on Yoshino. After saying that, he left the storage room. Aki was furious at his behavior, while Masamune felt victorious, believing that Aki would eventually give in to him. He had drawn inspiration from a comic book by Chainatsu that he had read earlier. Masamune was convinced that his first step had been a success, and now his focus was to make Aki like him even more. He believed his love-or-nothing strategy was nearing its final stage. At that moment, Aki touched her cheek and called Masamune foolish. After school, Masamune thought it might be time to ask Aki for her phone number. While he was walking, his foot suddenly got caught in a rope trap, and he ended up hanging upside down. It turned out Yoshino had set the trap. She called Masamune by his old nickname and questioned if he was really planning to take revenge on Aki. Masamune was shocked that Yoshino knew the name he had been called when he was little, especially since he remembered none of his childhood friends being small enough to fit that description. That was when Masamune realized Yoshino was actually the one who lived with Aki. Yoshino cut the rope and Masamune fell, landing painfully. Yoshino explained that her ancestors had been serving the Adagaki family for generations, and her family had already been loyal for over 300 years. That meant Yoshino was not Aki's friend in the way Masamune imagined, but rather someone dedicated to serving her. To Masamune, Yoshino's kind and humble personality had seemed like a Cinderella story, but now it became clear that Aki was not a stepmother figure in Yoshino's life. She was the master Yoshino had always been expected to serve. Masamune felt tricked by Yoshino's demeanor and thought his plan for revenge might have to end there. He told her she was free to laugh at him, and he admitted he did not regret showing Aki what it felt like to be treated the way she had treated him. Surprisingly, Yoshino did not take issue with his plan and even offered to help him. The next day, Aki was surrounded by her friends Mary, Hikune, and Sonoka, who followed her almost like attendants. Mary suggested having a tea party after school, but Aki refused since she had cleaning duty that day. Hikune and Sonoka admired her sense of responsibility for not skipping her assigned task. From a distance, Masamune observed them while still questioning Yoshino's intentions. He was not sure whether he could trust her, worried that her offer might be a trap. Besides, since this was his revenge plan against Aki, he felt it was something he needed to see through on his own. Not long after, Tae appeared carrying a stack of papers. She called Masamune's name and reminded him he was heading the wrong way if he wanted to reach the lower classrooms. She even offered to draw him a map so he would not get lost again. Masamune thanked her and carried the stack of papers for her. Todd explained that it was her duty as class representative to help the new student. While they walked, Tae mentioned that the students had been talking about a barbecue party being planned in class. Masamune thought this might be the right chance to practice asking for someone's contact information. Until then, the only number saved in his phone was his mother's, and the idea of asking a girl for her contact felt overwhelming. He lost his nerve and hurried ahead to class instead. Once in the classroom, Masamune asked Kojuro if exchanging contacts with someone meant that person could see the rest of his contact list. Kojuro reassured him that was not the case. Still anxious, Masamune asked again to be sure, and Kojuro was surprised by how serious he was about such a small detail. Relieved that his list would remain private, Masamune started wondering about the perfect moment to ask Aki for her number without making it awkward. A little later, someone from another class announced that one student was missing from the cleaning duty rotation, and they needed a replacement until summer. Tat wanted to volunteer, but could not because she had club activities that day. Since Masamune was not yet part of a club, he offered to take the spot. After school, Masamune joined the cleaning duty. To him, this was a golden opportunity to be near Aki. He greeted her, but she ignored him. Assigned to clean the classroom windows, Masamune grew frustrated over the phone number issue. He worried that if people found out about his embarrassing past nickname, they would see him as a loser and no girl would want to be with him. For a moment, he began to think that making Aki fall for him might be nothing more than an impossible dream. At that moment, Tae approached him to apologize for giving him extra trouble. Masamune brushed it off and told her not to feel guilty, but Tae admitted she often caused others problems. She compared herself to Masamune, who always seemed willing to help others without complaint. Masamune realized this might be his chance, and he suspected Ta had purposely waited until he was alone. Ta commented that the barbecue party would probably be fun, but suggested that going to the movies together might be even better. Masamune's imagination ran away with him. He pictured sitting next to Ta in a theater, their hands brushing against each other, watching a horror film that might lead her to grab his arm in fear, and afterward heading to a cafe to talk about the movie, something that felt very much like a date. The thought made his face turn red, and for a moment, he almost forgot about his original plan. Masamune had not said anything yet, but Ta noticed that he was busy and quickly apologized for asking him out of the blue. After Ta left, Masamune began to wonder if maybe he was becoming popular. He felt genuinely thankful to Ta for boosting his confidence. Suddenly, Aki showed up, saying that she was looking for a new bucket. Masamune felt extremely embarrassed since his face was still showing how happy he had been. Aki again asked if Tae was even part of the committee. Masamune admitted that Tae was only talking with him earlier, but it seemed like Aki had overheard their conversation. She pointed out that Masamune was lucky because he seemed popular. Masamune smiled and suspected that Aki might have sounded a little jealous, since her voice carried a lot of emotion. He said it would be pointless to date someone he did not truly like. Aki asked him which girl he actually wanted. Masamune boldly admitted that he wanted to date her and made it clear that he wanted her to be his girlfriend. Aki smiled and thanked him, which Masamune interpreted as her accepting his feelings. Excited, he asked for her contact and Aki agreed. Masamune could hardly believe it was that easy, and his confidence grew even stronger. However, Aki explained that her phone was being repaired at the moment and promised to give it to him during the next cleaning duty. Masamune then suggested that they meet again at the same time in that classroom. A week later, Aki never showed up at the promised place. Masamune grew bored from waiting until he noticed a letter near the blackboard. When he opened it, he found a clue that led him to check inside the teacher's desk drawer. Inside, he found an origami with another clue pointing to the broom closet. He quickly opened the broom closet and found yet another note leading him to the desk in the back. When he followed the instructions, he found a clue inside a cage. After opening it and being startled by the animals inside, he discovered a final note telling him to return to where it all started. Looking out the window, Masamune saw Aki holding up a rolled piece of paper, revealing that she was rejecting him. She smiled and walked away. Seeing this, Masamune grew upset because he realized Aki had been toying with him. Just then, Yoshino appeared and commented that he was simply unlucky. Yoshino explained that she was actually there to take Aki's place for cleaning duty. Masamune told her she could laugh at him if she wanted, but Yoshino calmly said that he was too naive. If he had trusted her from the start, she could have given him Aki's contact and he might have even been able to go on a date with her. Yoshino then wrote her own contact into Masamune's phone. That day, Ta shared some news with her friends. Based on a teacher's meeting, if even one student in the class got a failing grade, then the entire class would have to attend extra lessons for a full month. Tae's face turned red when she looked at Masamune, and she asked what he thought about it. Masamune said everyone just needed to study harder. Tae was convinced that Masamune would take the test with ease, but Masamune pointed out that the one who was always relaxed about exams was actually Kojuro. Kojuro really didn't seem worried. For her, what mattered most was trying her best. She even admitted that during the last midterm her scores were all single digits, and this time she hoped to at least get double digits. Masamune was shocked to realize how poorly Kojuro had done before. Tae was sure Kojoro would end up in the extra lessons, and she joked about Kojoro looking like she fit a certain type if she lost even more weight. Masamune was caught off guard by Tae's unusual hobby. Tae added that no matter how delicate a guy looked, he was still a guy. Masamune placed his hand on Kojoro's shoulder and suggested she start studying harder right away. Tae got excited, imagining that Masamune and Kojoro might end up spending time together. After school, Masamune invited Kojoro to join him in this self-study room. At first, he wanted to check just how much Kojoro understood, but Kojoro believed it was already too late to start. Masamune wondered how she even managed to get accepted into the school. Kojoro said that was one of the 7 wonders of the school. Masamune then asked what the other 6 were, and to his surprise, the conversation matched something Yoshino and Aki had said before. Unexpectedly, Aki and Yoshino were also in the study room. Masamune greeted them and asked if they were studying for the test as well. Aki explained that she was only helping Yoshino because if the rumor was true, then the whole class could get dragged into extra lessons. Masamune found it strange since Yoshino looked smart, but her grades turned out to be terrible. Kojoro commented that Yoshino was in the same situation as her. Aki was surprised to see Masamune teaching others. She thought it was ironic how confident he seemed when he could still be tricked by simple things. She hoped he would not make the wrong move again. That reminded Masamune of the time Yoshino had offered to help him. Suddenly, Masamune challenged Aki to a bet. Either he and Kojoro or Aki and Yoshino would score higher on the test. If Masamune won, then Aki would have to go on a date with him. Kojoro was stunned by his boldness. Aki wondered what the point of such a bet was, but Masamune teased her, saying she might just be afraid of losing. Aki dismissed that and asked what she would get out of it if she agreed. Masamune promised that if Aki won, she could give him any nickname she wanted and he would stick a tag with that nickname on his back until graduation. That made Aki interested, but she added another condition. If she won, Masamune would also have to buy her lunch until she was satisfied. Masamune agreed and the deal was made. Aki warned him not to regret it if he lost. Kojoro didn't feel confident, but Masamune reassured her. He also thought that if what Yoshino had once said was true, then the competition wasn't really 2 versus 2, it was more like 3 against 1. That night, Aki continued tutoring Yoshino. Yoshino asked if Aki wasn't going to study as well, but Aki replied by asking if Yoshino thought she would lose to Masamune. Yoshino explained that she didn't mean it that way, but according to rumors, Masamune had scored a perfect 100 on the entrance exam. Aki was shocked. Supposedly, he had been the first person to ever achieve that in their school. She hadn't expected it, especially since she thought Masamune was just overly full of himself. Yoshino promised she would do her best so Aki could win the bet. Still, she added that if Aki lost, then Aki would have to read a dating guidebook. Aki was horrified at the idea and quickly insisted that Yoshino take studying seriously. She also promised to help her as much as she could. Meanwhile, Masamune was building up the courage to call Yoshino. It would be the first time he ever called a girl, and he wondered if it was a waste for Yoshino to be the first. But if he didn't call, then he couldn't discuss the bet with her. Just when he was overthinking it, Yoshino actually called him first. Masamune hesitated but eventually picked up. He asked if she could help him with the bet, but Yoshino said it was impossible. She explained that Masamune was free to decide whatever he wanted, but she already had her own plans. She then said something strange about not letting them win easily, but also not defeating them completely. Masamune was confused by how oddly she acted toward him. The next day, Kojoro apologized to Masamune because her score was still in the single digits. She insisted that she had tried her best and said she was ready to accept a nickname as punishment if necessary. Later, Aki and Yoshino approached Masamune. Aki tested him by asking questions from Japanese history, biology, Japanese language, geography, and even English. Masamune was able to answer them smoothly. After that, Aki and Yoshino walked away together. Masamune realized that his skills and Aki's were evenly matched, and if things kept going that way, it could get dangerous. Everything would eventually depend on their individual abilities. That day after school, Masamune continued tutoring Kojoro as usual, to the point where she became exhausted. After school, he even made time to work out, and later that night, while it was raining, he was still teaching Kojoro. Aki and Yoshino happened to see them from outside. Chainatsu was surprised because her older brother, who was usually obsessed with working out, was now so focused on studying. Kinue explained that Masamune had an important test the next day, and she got really excited about preparing him a lunchbox. Hearing that, Masamune requested that the food should be low-calorie, high in protein, and without fat. He thought that if Yoshino wasn't going to help him, and he had to make sure to win the exam on his own. The next morning at school, Masamune asked Kojoro if she thought she could handle the test. Kojoro felt confident that she could, thanks to Masamune's tutoring. That day, only the math exam was left in the afternoon, and Masamune felt certain she would do well, since he had been so patient in teaching her math. That meant their chances of success were high. Kojuro then invited Masamune to grab something to eat since she was hungry after all their hard work. Before that, Masamune went to buy drinks. At the vending machine, he ran into Yoshino. She apologized to him, but Masamune said it was fine because he had started the competition in the first place. It would be strange to rely on her anyway, and the competition actually gave him motivation to study harder. He was very confident he wouldn't lose. Yoshino then handed him a drink, wishing him good luck on the test. Masamune was confused since Yoshino hadn't helped him at all but was now showing support. Yoshino replied that it no longer mattered and walked away, leaving Masamune wondering what she meant. When the exam started, the teacher reminded everyone to stay focused until the very end. Masamune felt relieved because the questions were similar to what he had studied. But then, out of nowhere, his stomach started to hurt badly. He suspected that the coffee Yoshino gave him had been spiked with something, and he grew frustrated. He started thinking that Yoshino and Aki really were his enemies, and he couldn't understand why they would resort to something underhanded. After the test ended, Masamune stormed off to Aki's classroom. He tapped a girl's shoulder, thinking it was Aki, but it turned out to be someone else. He then found out Aki hadn't come to school that day because she had a fever. At that point, he realized what Yoshino actually meant. Masamune would definitely win. Still, he couldn't understand why his stomach had to be involved. Soon after, Chinatsu messaged him and explained that the eggs in their lunch had gone bad, which explained the stomach pain. After school, Masamune had to attend extra classes and Kojuro cheered him on. To his surprise, Aki was also in the same class, which made him happy. He even thought of it as a kind of classroom date. The next day, Masamune prepared to go on an actual date. It turned out Yoshino had called him earlier and encouraged him to go. Masamune was puzzled, since the results of their last challenge had ended in a draw. Yoshino told him he was weak for giving up after a tie. She explained that on Sunday afternoon, Masamune and Aki would meet at the station and Aki was guaranteed to show up. When Sunday came, Masamune went to the station to see if Yoshino was right. Sure enough, Aki showed up, but she was wearing a magical girl costume. People around them were surprised, thinking Aki was doing a cosplay part-time job. Masamune was shocked too because it was the same costume from an anime that aired every Sunday morning. Not long after, a man asked to take a photo with Aki because her costume looked so good, which startled her. Masamune called out to her, and Aki quickly rushed to his side, clearly uncomfortable. The man made a rude comment before leaving, which annoyed Aki, and she gave him a mocking nickname. She then invited Masamune to start walking with her. Masamune asked for an explanation about her outfit, and Aki was surprised he didn't know the so-called dress code for first dates. She explained that to make things less awkward on a first date, both people should wear costumes. Without Aki knowing, Masamune secretly called Yoshino and asked why Aki was acting that way. Yoshino said she had her own plan, and if Masamune trusted her, everything would go smoothly. Since Aki always trusted Yoshino's words and actions because of their long-standing master and servant dynamic, it made things easier to set up without raising suspicion. Masamune wondered why Yoshino was willing to help him so much, but Yoshino quickly ended the call, saying they shouldn't talk for too long or Aki might notice. Before hanging up, she cheered him on and teasingly called him by a silly nickname. Masamune thought that the best move was to just enjoy the opportunity and make the most out of the strange costume date. He went back to Aki and apologized for not really understanding the so-called dress code. Then he asked if that meant Aki was admitting they were on an actual date. Aki was caught off guard and got flustered, blaming the whole situation on Masamune's lack of resolve. Yoshino had apparently convinced her that she needed to support Masamune so he wouldn't fall apart after failing an exam. That was the reason she ended up spending the day with him. Masamune was confused about why Yoshino's story felt so much like a Korean drama. Aki told him that from that moment on, he should try to live more peacefully. She then took him to the movies, and Masamune was surprised when he realized that Aki had rented out the entire theater just for the two of them. Masamune admitted that Aki was still the same as she used to be. When he sat down next to her, Aki asked him to sit farther away instead. They ended up watching a horror movie about zombies that was terrifying. Masamune had forgotten to check what movie they were going to see beforehand, and it turned out to be way too scary, to the point that Aki nearly fainted from fear. Masamune asked if she really hadn't known it was a horror movie, and it turned out Yoshino had been the one who arranged everything. After the movie, Aki's stomach growled from hunger, so the two of them went to a restaurant. Masamune was surprised that she still had such a big appetite after watching something so frightening. As Aki finished each plate, she pushed the empty dishes toward him. Masamune thought that the Aki he had known in the past would have acted much more arrogant, and she probably would have been embarrassed to eat 3 full meals at a restaurant while dressed in a magical hat-appear costume. Out of curiosity, Masamune suddenly asked if her eating habits were something she had always had since childhood. Aki admitted that it might have come from a painful memory in her past. Suddenly, a little girl asked why Aki was wearing such a strange outfit. Masamune was caught off guard, but Aki quickly defended herself, saying her outfit was not strange at all, but actually the costume from Hatapure. She became upset when the girl assumed she was just cosplaying, and the small commotion drew people's attention. Aki insisted that the little girl simply didn't understand and that what she was doing was actually part of a date ritual. Embarrassed, Masamune grabbed her hand and hurriedly pulled her outside. Realizing that everyone had been staring, Aki began to feel that maybe the costume she wore really wasn't normal. The two of them then went to a summer clothing shop. Aki went straight into the fitting room to change out of the costume, and suddenly she screamed loudly. Worried, Masamune rushed toward her. Aki's face turned red when she saw him, and she instinctively hit his face, making him fall down. Back when Masamune was still a chubby boy who often got teased, he had accidentally passed in front of Aki's house and met her. Aki had scolded him harshly, telling him to become stronger. Her words back then had been blunt and merciless. That evening, Masamune woke up with his head resting on Aki's lap. He thought that deep down, her heart was still just as kind as before. When Aki noticed he was awake, she immediately stood up and got ready to leave. Masamune apologized for startling her earlier, but Aki still acted proudly. Later, Masamune called Yoshino to tell her about their date that day. Yoshino explained that her goal in helping him was always for Aki's sake. She believed that Aki needed to do some self-reflection, and that if Masamune ever ended up rejecting her, Yoshino herself would benefit as well. Masamune understood what she meant, though he thought it was a bit much to have been made to sleep on Aki's lap. Yoshino didn't even seem to understand what he was talking about. Masamune then asked her for help again in the future, even calling her teacher as a nickname. At that moment, another one of Aki's maids, Naruno, mentioned that it was rare for Yoshino to talk with anyone besides Aki, and asked if something exciting had happened. Yoshino simply replied that it had been a very exciting day. That day, Masamune was reading a manga that had a touching scene. In it, the male character hugged the female lead in the middle of the rain and said that if the rain was like her tears, then he would not mind getting completely soaked. The scene made Masamune's heart race, and he quickly marked the page in his manga. Not long after, Chinatsu came into Masamune's room because she wanted to borrow a comic. She thought Masamune was still studying. For Masamune, his mission of revenge could also be considered a form of studying. The next morning, Aki left together with Yoshino. She reminded Yoshino not to give her the wrong information again. Yoshino sincerely apologized, and when she saw them from a distance, she felt sure that the revenge plan was really going to work out. After school, Masamune and Aki attended their usual extra classes. That day, they were studying Japanese history. While the teacher explained the lesson, Aki immediately took notes, but Masamune just stared at her instead. Aki noticed and felt uncomfortable, asking him to pay attention to the front. With confidence, Masamune told her that in his eyes there was only Aki. That afternoon, it started raining heavily. Aki had not gone home yet and thought about asking Yoshino to bring her an umbrella. But suddenly, Masamune showed up and offered his umbrella to her. Out of nowhere, he repeated the line from the manga he had read the night before, saying that if the rain was like Aki's tears, then he would not mind being soaked. After handing over the umbrella, Masamune ran off. He was overjoyed, convinced that his strategy of planting seeds of love would succeed. Unfortunately, the next evening, when Yoshino met Masamune outside, she told him that Aki had actually felt disgusted by his actions. Masamune could hardly believe it, but Yoshino explained that Aki had mentioned it 24 times that day. Masamune was upset with Aki, but Yoshino admitted that she also found what he did embarrassing. Masamune defended himself, saying that the scene was from a legendary story and practically a sacred text for girls. Yoshino insisted that was not the point and advised him to keep some distance from Aki. Being overly persistent was not good either, so Masamune needed to control the pace. She suggested that the next time he saw Aki at school, he should act indifferent. When Yoshino got home, Aki immediately scolded her, wondering why she had taken so long at the convenience store. Yoshino apologized, saying a stray cat had chased her, but Aki did not care and just asked for her groceries before returning to her room. Yoshino stood quietly, noticing Masamune's umbrella sitting there. That night, Masamune went back to reading his manga. He realized that the female character eventually became aware of her feelings because the protagonist started acting distant. But on the other hand, he wondered what if Aki ended up hating him if he did the same. He imagined Aki feeling relieved to be free of him. The next day at school, Masamune bumped into Aki in the hallway. Out of habit, he was about to greet her, but suddenly remembered Yoshino's advice. He immediately acted cold and ignored her. When Aki tried to return the umbrella, she was surprised that Masamune had brushed her off and walked away. Back in class, Masamune felt proud that he had finally managed to act indifferent toward her. He thought all of his efforts to build something with Aki might collapse, but since he had already started, he decided to just follow through with it. During another extra class, Aki once again tried to return his umbrella, but Masamune walked past her and chose a seat far away. His classmates were happy that he sat closer to them. Aki noticed how friendly he was with others, but not with her. The following day, Masamune crossed paths with Aki and Yoshino. He believed Aki must have missed him by now, but to his surprise, Aki also acted cold and quickly avoided him. Masamune was shocked and wanted to chase after her, but Yoshino gave him a look that made him stop. He assumed it was her signal that it still was not the right time to approach Aki again. From then on, Aki continued to ignore him whenever they met. Masamune tried to confirm this by following her. In the school restroom, he started wondering what would happen if Aki kept treating him this way. He even questioned if he was just a background character in someone else's story. That afternoon, Masamune was walking alone down the school corridor when Aki suddenly stopped him and called out his name. He was startled by how suddenly she appeared. Aki told him they needed to talk. Normally, when someone wanted to talk to Masamune, they would act shy, but Aki looked like she was annoyed. Masamune suggested they talk another time and tried to walk away, but Aki tossed the umbrella at his head, making him wince. She spread her arms, blocking his way so he could not escape. Aki clearly did not want to let him walk away. When Masamune tried to run past her, she grabbed his tie, pulling him down. Masamune asked her to let go, but Aki refused. She scolded him and called him foolish, demanding to know what he really wanted. Her grip did not loosen, and Masamune felt like the whole situation resembled being cornered by someone tough at school. He realized his fate was nothing like that of a manga protagonist. Ake then asked why he had suddenly started acting distant, explaining that it left her unsure of what to do. Masamune froze when he heard that, especially when he noticed Aki's face turning red. He reminded himself not to be charmed by her flustered expression. Masamune praised Yoshino, calling her a teacher to him, since everything seemed to move according to plan because of her help. He thought maybe it was finally time to strike back. Masamune admitted that he had purposely waited for Aki to say those words. Aki, however, had not expected that he had done it on purpose, and she called him cruel. This left Masamune wondering if his plan was actually working or not. Even though Aki called him cruel, her expression was not one of anger, but more of confusion. Aki asked why Masamune would intentionally do such a thing and what it was that he actually liked about her. The truth was, his reasons were complicated. Aki was beautiful, yet she claimed not to like boys. She had a great figure, yet she was known for her appetite. She was smart, but sometimes slow to notice things. Still, Masamune could not bring himself to say that he simply had no idea how to answer her question. In the end, he decided to say that he liked everything about Aki. Aki did not understand what he meant by that, but Masamune believed a person like her was one of a kind. After saying that, he suddenly ran away. He was puzzled with himself for choosing to flee, especially after finally getting such a reaction out of Aki. He had no idea what to do next, so he went straight to Yoshino to explain the situation. Yoshino called him foolish and admitted she could not believe he had never thought ahead about how to answer such a question. Masamune begged her to stop blaming him and instead help him find a solution. He even asked Yoshino to bring out something that could make his heart calm down. Yoshino reminded him that she was not a robot from the future. Masamune wondered if he should just say it was because Aki was beautiful, but Yoshino quickly stopped him with a sigh. Finally, Masamune decided to use a letter, as Yoshino had once suggested, so that he would not accidentally say the wrong thing. However, when he was about to place the letter in Aki's locker, Aki caught him in the act. She immediately confronted him. In the end, Masamune gave her the letter directly, telling her that all of his feelings were written inside. Aki took the letter, but without even opening it, she crumpled it up and threw it into the trash. At that moment, she declared that she truly hated Masamune. Masamune tried to tell her that she misunderstood, but Aki raised her voice and said she already knew he was selfish. With that, she left. Not long after, Yoshino showed up. Masamune confessed that he was even more confused now, because Aki suddenly said she hated him and then ran away. He had thought things would go smoothly, just like before. Yoshino said she would take care of it. Masamune asked her to explain what was really wrong, but Yoshino was surprised that even then he still did not understand why he liked Aki. That, she said, was the reason his words had failed to convince her. Masamune could not respond. Yoshino told him to stay calm and promised she would make sure Aki agreed to date him. Masamune then wondered if he should really just sit back and let her handle everything like a sidekick. He felt uneasy because the revenge plan had been his idea in the first place, and in his mind, no proper revenge could be achieved just by waiting for someone else to do the work. His pride refused to accept that. That day, for the first time, Aki skipped school. She went to the amusement park alone, worried that her actions might cause problems later. Suddenly, she heard the voice of a girl calling for her dog, which startled her. Aki was surprised by how irritated she had become over nothing. It was all because of Masamune. He had suddenly grown distant, and on top of that, Aki had seen him meeting with Yoshino. This made her doubt his words about liking everything about her. She was convinced Masamune probably said the same things to every girl. She wondered when exactly Masamune had gotten so close to Yoshino, especially since he had asked her out on a date. Not long after, Yoshino appeared in front of Aki. Aki was surprised that Yoshino had never told her about this. Pretending nothing was wrong, Aki told Yoshino to go back to school first. Yoshino explained that she had met with Masamune the day before. He needed someone to talk to, so they had spoken on the phone and exchanged texts often. Aki said it was none of her business, but Yoshino asked if it had made her sad. Aki denied it, saying there was no way she would be upset because of someone as self-absorbed as Masamune. Yoshino touched her face gently and asked if that was truly how she felt. Aki found it strange that Yoshino, who could be clumsy at times, was always sharp when it came to feelings. Even so, Aki kept denying it. She said she would never be sad over anything involving a boy. She had already decided to believe that all boys were liars. In her eyes, they were selfish, careless, and distant whenever they pleased. That was why she claimed she could never fall for one. She said she would not be upset just because Masamune was secretly meeting with Yoshino, and certainly not to the point of liking him. Meanwhile, Masamune was looking for Aki. Yoshino told Aki not to worry because Masamune only liked her and asked if Aki herself did not feel the same. Hearing that made Aki blush. She denied it, but before she realized it, Yoshino had already disappeared. Confused by how quickly Yoshino left, Aki kept walking aimlessly. She was frustrated with herself for being so unsettled. She admitted she had been this way since childhood. She always hurt others first before they could hurt her. She thought it was better to be disliked and avoided than to go through the pain of being hurt. That was why she had always acted cold and sharp-tongued. She started recalling her moments with Masamune. The memories left her more confused than ever. She wondered if Masamune truly liked her or if he was only joking. Deep down, Aki realized she was beginning to feel something too. When Aki was about to cross the street, Masamune suddenly shouted and told her to stop. Aki, who was a bit lost in thought, had stepped forward even though the pedestrian light was still red. A car almost hit her, but Masamune managed to pull her hand and save her just in time. The car came to a halt and Masamune, breathing heavily, admitted he felt relieved that he had found her. At the same time, he was puzzled about what Aki had been thinking to cross the street so carelessly. Aki replied that it was none of his business, but Masamune insisted that it was because if something happened to her, he would not know what to do. Hearing those words made Aki's face turn red, and she suddenly remembered Yoshino's advice about figuring out her feelings. Masamune then apologized for yelling at her earlier. Just as Aki was about to respond, the girl who had almost hit her with a car walked over. She was beautiful and asked if Aki was alright. Aki immediately pulled her hand away from Masamune and replied that she was fine. The girl looked relieved but then froze the moment she saw Masamune's face. Wearing a rosary around her neck, she seemed shocked and couldn't believe she had run into him there. She quickly stepped forward and hugged him tightly, saying she had been wanting to meet him for so long. Masamune, on the other hand, had no idea who this girl actually was, while Aki stood stunned as she watched another girl holding him right in front of her eyes. A girl who accidentally bumped into Aki did not expect to run into Masamune there. She hugged Masamune tightly, which startled him. Masamune did not know who the girl was, and Aki became very upset seeing another girl hug him right in front of her. Masamune could not understand why the girl hugged him. Her closeness made him blush. The girl quickly let go, realizing she had been impolite to Masamune, and apologized. She believed that fate had brought them together again because they had never lost contact day or night. She held Masamune's hand, which made him even more embarrassed. He felt the smoothness of her hand and tried to open his eyes wide, but he still could not recognize her, having never met her before. The girl knew Masamune's name and asked if he missed her. Masamune was shocked that she knew his name, wondering if it was really possible for an unknown girl to approach him like this. He told her that she might be mistaken. Suddenly, Shido arrived and reminded the girl that it was time to leave. The girl admitted that she was very happy to see Masamune and said goodbye before leaving with Shido. At that moment, Aki, her face full of anger, demanded to know who the girl had been. Masamune said he did not know her at all. Aki looked frustrated and, muttering in irritation, left Masamune behind. Shido reminded the girl that she was a princess of the Fujinomiya family and that she had already made a promise to her master. The next day, Masamune thought to himself that he wished people would act fairly, especially Aki, who had told him to disappear even after he had explained everything. He was confident that he had done nothing wrong and that Aki should have listened to his explanation. During lunch break, Masamune joined the rush to buy bread in the cafeteria. He ordered 5 noodle-filled buns, a pork sandwich, and 5 croquettes. After getting his order, he headed to the sports equipment storage room. He thought that this would be enough to appease Aki, who was probably enjoying her lunch there. Masamune believed that even when Aki was in a bad mood, offering her a selection like this would make her willing to listen. He was sure that everything would be fine once he explained. Suddenly, someone shot him with a gas gun. Surprised, Masamune confronted the person only to find out it was Yoshino. He was confused as to why she was being aggressive. Yoshino explained that she had been ordered by Aki to guard the door and was supposed to drive Masamune away if he appeared. Masamune realized that Aki was still angry with him. Yoshino guessed that Aki's anger would last a while and wondered what Masamune had done to deserve this. Masamune told her that after speaking with her the previous day he had met Aki and explained about the unknown girl. He swore that he did not know the girl at all, not even her name. He hoped Yoshino would believe him, but she shot him again. Yoshino remarked that Masamune was hopeless for interfering despite being told not to. Masamune questioned whether he was really useless. He explained that it was not his intention to cause trouble and was confused that Yoshino still did not understand. Yoshino then left. Determined, Masamune decided to approach Aki in the sports equipment storage room. He took a deep breath and thought about what to say. He considered telling her confidently that she was still number one to him, but feared it might anger her further. Eventually, he placed the bread in front of the storage room door and left. Soon after, Aki came and took the bread inside. That night, Masamune could not sleep, still thinking about the incident. The next day, strong winds blew across the school. Masamune appeared gloomy, especially after his sleepless night. He still could not recall the identity of the girl who had hugged him. His face turned red thinking about her beauty, realizing that she was the type of girl he liked. When the bell rang, he still could not remember if he had ever met her, and his thoughts became even more chaotic, especially with Aki frustrating him and Yoshino acting as she had. At that moment, Tae asked Kojuro what was going on with Masamune. Kojuro admitted she did not know, as Masamune had been acting strangely all morning. That day, the teacher announced that a new student had joined their class. To Masamune's surprise, it was the girl who had hugged him the day before. She introduced herself as Neko. She greeted the classmates, and they all remarked that Neko seemed very elegant. Neko smiled warmly at Masamune, and the teacher invited her to take the empty seat. During the break, Masamune wanted to approach Nako, but her friends crowded around eager to talk to her. They complimented her hair and asked which school she had attended before. Neko had previously studied at Seikyu Academy, a girls-only boarding school located in the mountains shaped like a castle, which had even appeared on TV. Masamune really wanted to talk to Neko, but the next class period had already started. During the following break, he still could not get a chance to speak with her because she was constantly surrounded by other students, who even accompanied her to the restroom. The boys noticed how lively girls could be when they gathered and realized they had been somewhat excluded from the conversation. One of the boys suggested that Kojuro join in with the girls, but she was hesitant. After some encouragement and reassurance that the girls probably would not notice, Kojuro agreed and even had a ribbon placed on her. Seeing this, Masamune decided to step in and take the opportunity to talk to the new student. His friends were moved and cheered him on. Masamune also had many questions for Neko. He asked for permission to join the group, worried that his presence might interrupt their conversation. Taya then revealed something surprising. Neko had intentionally transferred to their school just to meet Masamune. He was shocked by the news. Neko explained that she did not expect him to know because she only felt grateful to him. Her friends became curious and asked her to share more. Neko began her story. 3 years ago, during Christmas, she had been volunteering on the street, encouraging passersby to donate to charity, but no one did. Masamune came up from behind, covered her with his jacket, and gave money for her cause before leaving. Neko chased after him. Masamune reminded her to wear warmer clothes and joked that she looked like she had wings ready to fly away. Neko admitted that in that moment he had seemed like an angel to her. The girls cheered at the sweet story, curious about what this meant for Aki. Taya compared it to a romantic series. Masamune was confused, remembering that he had been a chubby boy from Shinshu just a few years ago. His friends believed Neko's story. Masamune gently took Neko's hand and asked to speak with her privately. The girls screamed in excitement as he led her outside, hurrying along. Neko stumbled and Masamune apologized for not noticing. When he saw what appeared to be blood, he panicked, but Neko reassured him that she was fine and only felt a bit dizzy. Masamune helped her stand, and they realized it was just tomato sauce from earlier, not blood. Neko explained that she liked tomato sauce, humorously calling it refined girl's choice, while Masamune looked slightly frustrated. Trying to change the subject, Neko was asked by Masamune why she had fabricated part of the story when he did not even know her back then. Neko admitted it was a bit embarrassing but suggested it was better if only the two of them knew the full truth. Masamune still did not understand, but Neko said she did not mind if he did not remember her and that regardless of the circumstances, he would always be her ideal. She asked if that troubled him. Neko was undeniably sweet, but Masamune tried to remain composed. He admitted he understood her feelings but revealed that he liked someone else. Hearing this, Neko's eyes filled with tears, and she asked if the girl was attractive to him. Masamune explained that the girl could be rough and a bit self-centered but still found her appealing. Neko asked him to show who the girl was. Masamune led Neko to see Aki, who was instructing Yoshino to buy bread. Masamune thought Neko might back off after seeing Aki, realizing she could be unbeatable, but Neko boldly entered Aki's classroom and apologized for any trouble caused for Masamune. She introduced herself and admitted feeling a little envious knowing Masamune had feelings for Aki. At that point, a sudden gust of wind blew through an open window, causing Neko's skirt to lift. Masamune and Aki quickly reacted to help her and prevent embarrassment. Neko noticed their concerned expressions and quickly adjusted her clothing. Neko smiled and admitted that she was someone who cared about her health, even mentioning that a little tension could be good for the heart. Masamune was puzzled by her attitude, but Neko explained that the key was in the way she walked and stood. She said she felt truly happy, seeing it as a blessing. At that moment, Aki became annoyed and asked them to leave because they had disrupted the atmosphere. Aki quickly walked away, but Masamune wanted to talk to her. Aki ignored him and continued to leave. Masamune chased after her, trying to clarify the misunderstanding. He explained that it was Neko who had mistaken him for someone she knew, while Masamune himself did not know her at all. Masamune was surprised that Aki seemed to trust Neko more than him. Aki wondered what exactly she was supposed to believe from him. Masamune gently held Aki's shoulders and asked her to listen to his explanation. In the process, Aki accidentally bumped into their teacher while trying to free herself from Masamune's grip. As a result, both of them were assigned the punishment of cleaning the school's pool. Aki felt very annoyed and jokingly gave the teacher the nickname Ginger Teacher. From class 3B, Masamune ended up being punished as well because Aki had accidentally bumped into the teacher. Masamune suggested they start cleaning the pool immediately. Aki agreed but reminded him to keep his distance. Hearing this, Masamune became a bit frustrated and playfully sprayed water at Aki with a hose. Aki was startled and scolded him, while Masamune apologized, saying it was unintentional. Aki then removed her jacket, revealing her swimsuit underneath. Masamune noticed that her figure was not as curvy as he had imagined. Aki quickly scolded him for staring. Soon, Aki struggled to carry a bucket of water and asked Masamune to come closer. Masamune wondered what she needed the water for. Aki explained that she planned to pour the water on him as a playful form of payback, following the old saying about an eye for an eye. She insisted that it was unfair for only her to get wet, carrying the bucket toward him. Masamune pleaded with her not to do it, explaining that he was not wearing a swimsuit and did not want to go home soaked. Aki teased him, joking about how he should not be like Neko. Unfortunately, Aki slipped and fell into the pool. She struggled to reach the surface and Masamune panicked, surprised that someone like Aki could not swim well. He jumped in to help her, but Aki's feet touched the bottom of the pool. Aki was puzzled, remembering that Masamune had previously said he did not want to get wet. Masamune admitted that he had no choice. Aki had already anticipated that answer, and Masamune wondered what else he could say, knowing that if he admitted his feelings for her, she probably would not believe him. Masamune sincerely focused on helping Aki and apologized for being too forward. He realized that if Aki had already closed her heart, there was no point in giving long explanations, but he could not understand why he still felt frustrated. Suddenly, Aki challenged Masamune to prove that he truly liked her. Masamune asked how he could do that, and Aki suggested that he show it through his actions, leaving the method to his discretion. That afternoon, Yoshino was waiting for Aki alone, wondering why it was taking her so long to finish her punishment. Suddenly, Neko arrived carrying an umbrella since the weather was extremely hot. She asked Yoshino if she knew where Masamune was. Yoshino was puzzled about why Neko would even ask that, but Neko insisted that Yoshino was the first person she should check with. Yoshino admitted that she had no idea where Masamune could be. At that moment, Aki had asked Masamune to prove his feelings for her by kissing her. Masamune froze at the request. Seeing him so silent, Aki remarked that if he were serious about her, he should be able to do it. Masamune was completely thrown off. In his mind, a kiss was supposed to be the final step in his love-or-nothing strategy. His original plan had been to refuse Aki's kiss at the very end of his revenge mission. marking the completion of his plan. Instead, here he was unexpectedly alone with her, and Aki was asking for a kiss right in the middle of his strategy. Aki assumed that Masamune did not want to go through with it and started to step away. But he stopped her and brought his face closer to hers. He wasn't even fully aware of what he was doing. His heart felt like it was about to jump out of his chest, and he had no idea how to react. In a fleeting thought, he imagined treating Aki like a piece of food he could nibble on. As he leaned in, Aki reacted immediately, hitting him sharply. Masamune was bewildered by her reaction and felt frustrated at Aki for playing the victim. Soon after, Tai and her friends arrived. Tai asked what Masamune and Aki were doing there. Masamune explained that he had been punished by having to clean the pool, but they had been tempted to swim. Tai revealed that she was a member of the swim club and was on her way to practice. Masamune understood why her physique was so fit and admired her dedication. Tai encouraged him before leaving, giving him some motivation to continue cleaning. As Aki was about to leave the pool area, she admitted that Masamune seemed completely infatuated with her and she didn't know what to do about it, so she could only tolerate it. Masamune, witnessing her attitude, felt even more frustrated. He was still confused, realizing he had almost kissed her after she had asked for it. Suddenly, Nico approached, startling Masamune. She explained that she had been looking for him for a while and then sat down next to him. Masamune admitted that he was exhausted and didn't have the energy to walk. Neko offered him a drink, and he was surprised that she had brought hot tea during such a hot season. Nico explained that in the summer, the body should not get cold and that sodium and citric acid were helpful to prevent dehydration. She had mixed green tea with pickled plum for that reason. Masamune found it reasonable and preferred it over a sugary juice that might make him feel sick. Neko added that people often lack vitamins and magnesium in summer, so she had brought yeast and propolis. The propolis had a patented method for better absorption. Masamune looked at her, and she immediately apologized for getting carried away talking to herself. Masamune admitted that he had never been very interested in supplements because he believed the foundation should be exercise and a healthy diet before adding any extra. Nico agreed, and her slightly sour expression made her look even cuter. At that point, Masamune asked Nico what she liked about him. He knew that he was the type of person who could overcome any obstacle, but he couldn't answer Eki's question from before. If Nico answered that it was because of his looks or anything about him, he would immediately reject it, especially since she hadn't known him long enough to understand his character. He was curious about what she would say. Nico told him that he was innocent and naive, to the point that she didn't know why he was attractive. Masamune was surprised by her answer. Nico suggested that he should be more confident because she thought he was very appealing. She left soon after, as Shido had come to pick her up. Masamune realized that she was tougher than he had imagined and admitted to himself that he still needed to improve his courage and directness. Meanwhile, Yoshino was observing Nico from a distance. She considered Nico a potential threat and decided she needed to deal with her quickly. Yoshino followed Nico wherever she went, curious about her plans. Suddenly, Shido appeared and asked Yoshino what her business with Nico was. Yoshino admitted she wasn't sure what he meant. Nico then arrived and explained to Shido that Yoshino was her classmate. She realized that Yoshino worked for Aki, held her hand and smiled warmly at her. Yoshino apologized to Nico, and Nico asked her to stop pretending because she could tell that Yoshino must have been tired even if she tried to hide it. Yoshino then asked why Nico was so concerned about Masamune. Nico admitted that Masamune had once helped her, but Yoshino still found it hard to believe as Masamune had already told her about it. That afternoon, Masamune noted the words Nico had said, thinking that perhaps those were the words he should eventually say to Aki. He also wondered if he might start liking Nico, as she continually impressed him. When Masamune returned home, he was surprised by the noise in the house and immediately went toward the back. Kenyue greeted him as he came in, and he was astonished to find both Yoshino and Nico in his kitchen. He could not understand why they were there. Nico explained that it was her first time making fried shrimp and hoped it would match Masamune's taste. Masamune even wondered if he had accidentally entered the wrong house. Kenyue reassured him that the cooking would be ready soon and suggested he could have a snack while waiting. Realizing it was indeed his home, Masamune quickly took Yoshino to his room upstairs and asked why things had turned out that way. It turned out that earlier, Kenyue had seen Yoshino and Nico talking. From their uniforms, she assumed they were Masamune's friends. Kenyue guessed they might be fans of Masamune wanting to meet him, so she invited them inside to help make the fried shrimp. After hearing this, Masamune apologized to Yoshino for his mother's innocent mistake. He suggested that Yoshino and Neko head home before any misunderstandings arose. He quickly hid his childhood photos and took the magazine Yoshino had been reading. Seeing the room, Yoshino concluded that Masamune must think about exercise constantly. Masamune forbade her from looking around, yet she tried out his barbell. He explained that to stay attractive, one needed to exercise daily because even a little extra fat could accumulate over time. Neko then arrived and complimented Masamune's room, calling it beautiful, which took him by surprise. She thought it looked like a space for relaxation and recovery. Masamune promptly guided Neko out of the room and closed the door. Standing close together, Neko looked happy and Masamune asked why she had come into his room. Neko explained that the fried shrimp was ready and that Chinatsu had gone home, so Kinue asked her to come. The food was all high in calories. Chinatsu admitted she was surprised that Masamune had friends visiting, and Neko wondered why, since Masamune was popular at school. Chinatsu was about to mention that Masamune was worried about his privacy, but Masamune quickly covered her mouth to prevent her from saying too much. Neko asked what he meant by his identity, and Masamune suggested they start eating before discussing it further. Kinue invited everyone to start the meal together. During the meal, Masamune removed some flour from the shrimp because it contained too much fat. Neko took some vitamins and supplements. Kojoro reminded Masamune and Miko that food should be enjoyed. Masamune explained that the calories were a concern and that Neko was careful about nutrition. Chinatsu laughed, noting that they were quite similar in that way. Yoshino enjoyed her meal, even nodding when Kinue offered more. Chinatsu suggested they play with fireworks, but Masamune hesitated, thinking Yoshino and Neko might be too busy. Surprisingly, both girls were interested and Chinatsu was delighted. That evening, Chinatsu wore a yukata, which surprised Masamune. She lit fireworks and shouted with excitement. Yoshino had also put on a yukata and commented on how different Masamune's younger sister was compared to him, although Masamune noted that she had always been extremely energetic. He felt bad that Yoshino might have a hard time keeping up. Yoshino admitted that she did not like fireworks because when she was little, Aki had conducted an experiment to see how many rockets would be needed to fly to the moon, and Yoshino had been the test participant. Everything had turned bright white, leaving her unable to hear anything. Masamune felt sorry hearing this and was shocked at Aki's recklessness. For now, Yoshino just played with small, safe firecrackers that calmed her. Masamune then noticed Neko adjusting Chinatsu's yukata sash, and Chinatsu blushed with gratitude. Masamune realized that Neko always looked naturally beautiful, no matter what she wore. Catching Masamune looking at her, Neko smiled, making him blush. She complimented his younger sister's sweetness and admitted she had never experienced something like this before, leaving her a bit unsure. Masamune remarked that everyone has played with fireworks at some point. The three of them enjoyed watching the fireworks scatter across the night sky together. Not long after, Kinue brought them some watermelon. Chinatsu then challenged Yoshino and Neko to see who could spit the watermelon seeds the farthest. Masamune watched in amusement, puzzled by their behavior, which reminded him of grade school kids. Seeing them laugh as they spat the seeds, Neko couldn't help but giggle uncontrollably. Masamune thought to himself that if Neko were not so prone to fibbing, his relationship with her might have been completely different. If he hadn't been so focused on his plan for revenge against Aki, perhaps he could have felt something else toward Neko. After enjoying the fireworks, Neko quickly changed her clothes. Masamune informed her that her ride had arrived. Once she was ready to leave, Neko approached Masamune and jokingly asked if he would walk her home. Masamune was surprised that Neko was still teasing him, especially since Shido had already come to pick her up. Before leaving, Neko mentioned how much fun she had that day despite Masamune secretly wishing she would not come back to his house. After Neko left, Masamune asked Yoshino if she wanted to ride home. Yoshino explained that she lived at Aki's house, and Masamune realized that could have been dangerous if he had misunderstood the situation. He walked Yoshino to the main road, during which she reminded him not to get carried away by Neko's antics. Not just once, but twice. Meanwhile, Chinatsu felt elated, thinking the day had been incredibly fun. She also felt relieved as she had previously assumed that Masamune did not have many friends. Kinue, too, was surprised that Masamune had run into Neko again. On the way home, Shido apologized to Neko for not being able to spend the afternoon with her. Neko didn't mind at all, especially since she had already had such an enjoyable day. It turned out that Neko had taken a photo of Masamune from when he was a child with Aki and was amazed at how much the two of them resembled each other. The next day, Masamune met Aki in the sports equipment storage room. He confessed that the real reason he liked her was because she was innocent and pure-hearted, and he didn't really understand why he found her attractive. Masamune was surprised that Aki didn't respond at all, even after he had just expressed his feelings. Aki asked whether he really thought saying that would make her like him, explaining that his words sounded too flattering and over the top. She stated that she did not want to be equated with Masamune, and that she understood her own appeal better than anyone. According to her, Masamune was not truly innocent, but he simply had not yet reached that level of understanding. Feeling rejected, Masamune quickly left to meet Yoshino. He broke down in tears after hearing Aiki's harsh words. Yoshino commented that Masamune was rather foolish for repeating the same answer that Neko had given earlier. It was the last day of school before the summer break. As soon as the bell rang, the students cheered with excitement. Kojuro asked Masamune if he already had plans for the summer vacation. Suddenly, Aki approached Masamune, holding a brochure, and questioned why he had thrown it on her desk. Masamune was puzzled about how Aki knew it was from him. Aki showed him that his initials were written on the brochure. Masamune thought about the upcoming 40 free days of summer and decided he would not focus on strategies for a while. He wanted to adopt a bolder approach, learning from his previous experiences with Nico. Aki mentioned that she planned to spend her summer at her family's island villa and invited Kojuro to join her. Masamune was shocked to hear this. Kojuro could hardly believe Aki had asked him. Masamune suspected that Aki was trying to get a reaction out of him. Kojuro then wrapped an arm around Masamune and said that she would not go unless Mary joined them as well. Masamune found Kojuro's reaction amusing. He mentioned that since he and Kojuro were inseparable, if she went, he would have to go too. Suddenly, Neko joined in, wrapping her arms around Masamune as well, saying that if he went, she would go too. Seeing this, Tae felt a pang of jealousy. She really wanted to spend time swimming freely at the beach. Masamune asked Aki whether she preferred spending time alone on the beach or bringing everyone along. Aki, a bit frustrated, realized she had no other choice. Rather than being bored by herself, she agreed to invite everyone. The next day, Masamune and his friends set off for the remote Tsunade Island. While Aki was busy eating, Yoshino approached Masamune. She explained that she had been observing Nico, but could not find any weaknesses. Yoshino was surprised by Nico's strong obsession with Masamune. Masamune asked her not to dwell on it, emphasizing that no matter the situation, his main goal remained getting back at Aki. Yoshino, however, said this was not the time to be relaxed. She warned that she would reveal Masamune's plan to Aki if there was no progress during the trip. Masamune shivered at her words. Upon arriving at Tsunade Island, they noticed Midori on the phone, looking upset after what seemed to be a breakup with her boyfriend. She was visibly frustrated and shouting. A maid approached and informed her that Aki had already arrived. Hearing this, Midori immediately brightened up and became friendly, preparing to meet her. Masamune and the others were amazed at the grandeur of Aki's family villa. Masamune still worried about Yoshino's threat to reveal everything to Aki. Aki mentioned that Midori shouldn't have arrived earlier. It turned out that Midori was Aki's father's secretary. Since Yoshino's father was busy, Midori had been tasked with accompanying Aki. She was responsible for taking care of the young lady and admitted that Aki's sweet and cute personality made her feel at ease. Midori greeted Aki and her friends warmly. Everyone was impressed by her celebrity-like appearance. She didn't mind accompanying them at the villa, but was surprised to see a boy present. Kojuro clarified that he was also a boy. Masamune decided he no longer needed to worry about appearances. His main priority was his plan for revenge on Aki, as failure could be risky. He noticed that Aki was kind and polite in front of the girls but firm when dealing with boys. Despite the risks, Masamune decided to pretend to be Aki's boyfriend. This shocked everyone, and Aki reacted by throwing her suitcase in his direction, clearly annoyed at his bold claim. Masamune and Aki argued briefly. Midori commented that Aki, being older now, should not act so childish, noting that having a charming partner was a good thing for her growth. Aki scolded Midori for speaking so freely, suggesting she should not comment on such matters. Aki pulled Masamune aside to talk, frustrated by his earlier words. Masamune teased Aki about her composed behavior around girls. Although claiming to be Aki's boyfriend was risky, his prediction had paid off since Midori did not think negatively. Just as Aki was about to reprimand Masamune again, he mentioned Midori's name, which immediately silenced her. Aki reminded him that their relationship would only last while on the island and was purely pretend, warning him not to go too far. Tae, excited at the idea of swimming, quickly jumped into the water. Seeing Masamune shirtless, Kojuro complimented him, praising how cool he looked. Masamune remarked that Kojuro was lucky not to be wearing the swimsuit Tae had picked out for him. Kojuro explained that being a boy, he was supposed to wear swim trunks and also wore a t-shirt to protect his skin from getting sunburned. Neko approached them and mentioned that it was smart to be cautious because UV rays are very harmful to the skin. She then hugged Masamune and asked him to apply sunscreen on her back. Masamune was stunned, especially when Neko pressed against his arm while hugging him. He worried that if Midori saw them, the perfect chance he had to pretend to be in a relationship would be ruined. Masamune tried to free himself and Aki immediately stepped in to pull Neko away. Aki explained that Nico's cheap trick would not work there because, as Masamune had said, he was her boyfriend. From a distance, Yoshino was observing the situation. Aki warned Miko not to get in the middle. Masamune was surprised that Aki took the initiative on her own. Miko noted that Aki's expression didn't look angry. Aki acted that way for Miko's sake too. If Midori had seen the scene, she might have misunderstood. Masamune would be seen in a bad light and Nico could be caught in this situation, which could have harmed the reputation of the Fujinomiya family. Neko understood and decided to step back for the moment because Aki's reaction was so calm. Aki immediately held Masamune's hand and led him away, wanting to take him somewhere quiet because he was her boyfriend. Unbeknownst to them, Midori was secretly watching through binoculars. At that moment, it was just Aki and Masamune. Aki called his name, making his heart race, but then surprised him by asking him to bring her some cooked crab. Masamune was shocked by the request. Aki said she felt cold and suggested that Masamune ask Midori to prepare it. Masamune hesitated and reminded her that they were just pretending to be a couple. Aki explained that no one was around to see them and that pretending there would serve no purpose. This frustrated Masamune even more. Aki didn't care whether he was pretending or not. Her treatment of him remained the same, and she encouraged him to go get her food. Reluctantly, Masamune obeyed her request. Masamune realized that whether it was in the school equipment shed or at the beach, Aki's behavior was consistently mischievous. He thought that he needed to do something to adjust his plan. Masamune approached Midori and asked her to get food for Aki. Midori noted that Aki hadn't changed and praised Masamune for being so willing to follow instructions for the sake of his girlfriend. Masamune asked if there were any fun spots nearby. Midori mentioned that there were a disco, a recital hall, and a cabaret for men in the area. Masamune smiled and clarified that he meant places fun for high school students during summer break. Midori suggested a spot for a courage test. Aki was known to be easily scared, so Masamune thought it would be perfect, and the other friends would probably enjoy it too. After that, Masamune thanked her and went to fetch the food Aki had requested. Midori, who wouldn't bother ordinary people like Masamune, allowed everyone to like whoever they wanted. However, it was too soon for Masamune, and Midori had plans to make things a little challenging for him. On her first day as the secretary for the Adagaki family, Midori was on the phone with a man who had decided to end their relationship, which upset her. At that moment, she heard Aki crying. Concerned, Midori went to see her and asked why she was crying and what had happened to the chubby boy who often played around with her. Aki explained that he had disappeared and angrily declared that she no longer needed him. Midori noticed that Aki valued her pride more than being pitied. From then on, Aki developed a strong dislike for men. Even though Aki was beautiful and elegant, her behavior could be intense and intimidating. If her darker side fully emerged, she could dominate any situation with her commanding presence and strong sense of pride. What puzzled Midori, however, was the sudden appearance of Masamune in Aki's life. That night, Masamune and the others were planning to do a spooky challenge in an old building. The atmosphere there was really tense. Aki even wondered why Tae seemed so happy. Masamune organized a drawing to decide who would go in first. Yoshino was chosen to go first, followed by Kojuro, then Tae, then Aki, Masamune himself, and finally Nico. Masamune asked Yoshino to go in right away, and their friends cheered her on. Masamune was surprised at how good Midori's suggestion had been. The place turned out to be a perfect setup. It turned out that Masamune had already planned the order of entry. His idea was that when Aki became scared, he could appear and rescue her, creating a moment where Aki would feel grateful toward him. Just thinking about it made Masamune happy. Meanwhile, Midori was getting ready to scare someone. She noticed Ta passing by but decided not to scare her because her main target was Masamune. Midori wanted to make Masamune have a frightened expression, imagining it would be embarrassing but funny. She was confident that Aki could handle the challenge and Masamune would end up flustered, an awkward moment that could change the dynamic between him and Aki. Next, it was Aki's turn. As footsteps approached, Midori assumed it was Aki, but she was startled to see a masked girl carrying a prop saw. Midori ran in fear, but the masked girl chased her. At the same time, Aki tried to turn on her flashlight, which had suddenly died. When it finally worked, she saw Midori in her scary mask, and both of them screamed loudly. Masamune heard the screams and rushed to find Aki. He found her and shined his flashlight at Midori, who realized there was a girl with a saw behind Masamune. Midori immediately ran away. Masamune now knew it was Midori wearing the mask. She ran screaming and Ta saw her and screamed hysterically. Kojuro was also terrified upon seeing Midori's mask appearance. Midori panicked, imagining a scary scenario and worried that someone might find out her age. She finally stopped, exhausted, and ran into Nico, whose face was covered in fake blood from the challenge. Midori panicked again and ran, accidentally hitting a utility pole and fainting. Midori woke up to find herself being carried by Masamune and was shocked. Masamune asked her to stay still because she had hit her head. Midori apologized and Masamune admitted he had been startled as well. He explained that he had asked Yoshino to scare the others and he hadn't expected Midori to get involved. Masamune described Midori as thoughtful, but Midori said it was actually Masamune who was being considerate toward Aki. Masamune confessed that he had only lied about dating Aki and had organized the spooky challenge to show off in front of her, but Midori had gotten involved unintentionally. Masamune apologized to her. Midori had not expected Masamune to be so kind, realizing that her assumptions had led to unnecessary worry. Aki seemed worried about Midori and scolded Masamune, but also thanked him afterward. Masamune asked Midori to keep what had happened a secret. The next day, their vacation ended. Masamune felt disappointed because things hadn't gone as he had hoped. Yoshino approached him and surprised him. According to Yoshino, Masamune's plan wasn't bad. Aki did care about what people said, but if she didn't like something, she would refuse. Yoshino praised Masamune for being proactive in front of Miko, which was why she decided not to tell Aki about what happened. Masamune felt relieved. Yoshino reminded him not to get careless, saying she would not help him if he didn't have ambition. That day, Masamune was working out in his room as usual. After finishing, he stood in front of the mirror and examined his abs from every angle. He felt happy because his abdominal muscles were now free of any extra fat. Suddenly, his phone rang. Masamune assumed it was probably a call from Yoshino. However, when he checked, he was completely shocked to see that it was actually Aki calling him. He had never expected Aki to call him, and he had never even dreamed of receiving a call from her. Masamune worried that it might be a bad sign. He hesitated, unsure whether to answer, fearing it could be some kind of trap. He imagined that Aki might raise his hopes only to crush them. Eventually, he decided to pick up the phone, and Aki immediately scolded him for taking so long to answer. That night, Masamune met Yoshino to talk about what happened. Apparently, Aki had called him the previous day to let him know that one of his suitcases had been left behind on the island and that she would return it in person the next day. Masamune called it a surprise. He could not believe that Aki would actually do that. Yoshino remarked that if their plan on the island had succeeded, Masamune should indeed be cautious. Despite the progress, a single misstep could lead to unexpected consequences. The next day, Masamune could not stop thinking about Aki. He wondered why Yoshino did not seem as excited about his progress as he expected. When he opened his desk drawer to do his homework, he was shocked to find that the small photo of himself with Aki, which should have been in the drawer, was missing. He recalled that Neko had come into his room previously and was certain that Neko must have taken it. Later, Masamune met Aki at a cafe because she wanted to return the items he had left behind at the villa. Masamune thanked her, and Aki teased him for being careless with his belongings. He felt genuinely happy that Aki was returning the items in person. Originally, she had planned to send them by mail, but Midori had asked why she would go through the trouble of mailing her boyfriend's things instead of delivering them herself, so Aki decided to bring them personally. Masamune felt pleased with Midori's intervention. Aki warned Masamune not to act overly familiar with her. Her sharp expression reminded him of their childhood. She had not changed much from 8 years ago, still showing the same stern demeanor toward him. They had even taken a photo together when they were kids. Thinking of that photo, Masamune realized that Neko must have seen it when she came into his room. Once Neko had seen it, she would know that the girl in the photo was Aki, and that the boy next to her was Masamune when he was chubby. Aki asked Masamune if he knew that Tai had invited everyone to go to the swimming pool the next day. She felt it was too soon, considering they had just returned from the villa. Masamune gave only a brief reply, preoccupied with the mystery of why Neko had taken the photo without saying anything. Normally, people would ask questions, and he wondered if Neko was not curious or why she had taken it at all. Aki called his name several times, but he did not respond. She even raised her voice in frustration. Startled, Masamune asked what was wrong. Aki, clearly annoyed, said she would leave if he was uninterested in talking to her. Masamune apologized, but she ignored him and walked away. Nearby, a little girl was talking to her mother about a man who had recently been left by his partner. Masamune was surprised to see several cups that Aki had used. He wondered what was going on and realized that this might be what Yoshino had meant the day before. He could not afford to ignore it. Soon after, Neko called him, and Masamune quickly picked up. Neko politely asked to speak with him. She explained that Tai had invited her to the swimming pool and wanted to check if Masamune would join them. Masamune asked where she was at that moment. When Neko said she was alone in her room, Masamune expressed that he wanted to meet her. Neko was surprised, but Masamune assured her that he meant no harm. She happily agreed and gave him her apartment address. Masamune walked to Neko's apartment. Upon arrival, Neko looked cheerful and invited him inside. It was the first time Masamune had visited a girl's home. If Aki's house was included, Neko's place was the second. He mentally sealed himself, determined to be brave, because if he wanted to find out about the photo, he had to take risks like a moth flying into a flame. Despite feeling slightly nervous, he stepped inside. Neko immediately poured tea for him. Masamune complimented the apartment, asking if Neko lived with an assistant. Neko mentioned that the apartment she lived in was a secondary residence that her father and grandfather often used for work-related matters. She asked Masamune why he had come by her place, but Masamune had forgotten the reason himself. He admitted that he had just happened to be nearby. Neko believed that their meeting must have been arranged by fate, while Masamune hesitated, wondering whether Neko was genuinely happy, leaving him confused. Masamune asked for permission to use the restroom, and Neko pointed out that it was at the end of the hallway. At that moment, Masamune planned to check if a particular photo was there because he needed to find out who had taken it. He soon entered a room that he suspected was Neko's bedroom. Unfortunately, he slipped on a place where vitamins had been left, which further convinced him that he had found Neko's room. The room was quite messy. Masamune noticed a series of comic books and assumed Neko had an interest in intense storylines. He also found a few items that left him puzzled. Suddenly, Neko appeared beside him, smiling, and mentioned that her tea was ready, asking if the bathroom had been difficult to find. Masamune was startled and visibly tense. Noticing Masamune holding the comic, Neko commented that it was indeed a good series. She explained that when she saw the same title in Masamune's room, she had asked Shido to buy it for her, and had even reread the third volume several times. Masamune realized that Neko admitted to entering his room. He asked if Neko had taken any photos from his room, and surprisingly, she admitted that she had been caught. Masamune was puzzled as to why she had taken it. Neko explained that she thought the photo looked cute, so she had taken it. Masamune asked if by cute she meant Aki, and Neko clarified that she actually meant Masamune. He was shocked by her words. Neko added that Masamune was as charming as Kintaro. She held his hand, and Masamune asked if she was serious. Her words touched him deeply. Neko admitted that she was envious of how much attention Masamune gave to Aki. Masamune recalled past experiences of mistreatment and embarrassment during his childhood, such as having his belongings hidden or being teased. He explained that back then he had been overweight and annoying, which made people dislike him, except for a few who were only interested in his wealth. He had noticed that Neko was different, but he still doubted her sincerity. Masamune expressed that when someone's attitude and enthusiasm do not match, it is obvious, and he was not interested in getting involved with someone who was not serious. Neko apologized to Masamune, who then retrieved his photo and left her room. Neko asked if this meant that Masamune would still choose Aki. Masamune left her apartment, complaining of a stomachache. Neko touched her lips, remembering how close they had come to sharing a moment, and recalled Masamune's words before leaving that his actions were part of his plan involving Aki. Neko cried, experiencing heartbreak for the very first time. The next day, Masamune and his friends went to the swimming pool after Tai had invited them. They met at Shaman Station. Masamune arrived a bit late, looking gloomy and noticeably thinner. Aki did not expect to see him with such an expression. Yoshino asked Aki about it, but Aki insisted she had not done anything. Kojiro mentioned that only Neko had not arrived yet. Upon hearing Neko's name, Masamune suddenly felt uneasy. He had just realized that Neko had been invited too. He was certain that the atmosphere would become awkward, and thinking this, he felt he probably should not have come at all. He did not even know what to say to Neko. Kojiro wondered why Neko was taking so long, since she was not the type to be late. Tai explained that Neko would not be coming because she had sent a message earlier saying she was not feeling well. Tai suggested that they should head to the pool immediately. Masamune was convinced that Neko's absence was because of him. Once they arrived at the pool, everyone enjoyed the slides and swimming, but Masamune just sat quietly by himself. Secretly, Aki observed him. Even while they were eating ice cream, Masamune remained silent and lost in thought. After changing out of their swimsuits, Masamune approached the others but only found Yoshino, as Tade was in the restroom and Aki was hiding to eat her ice cream alone, unable to enjoy it around everyone else. Yoshino asked Masamune what was wrong, noticing that he had been acting strangely, and Aki seemed similarly unsettled. She asked what had actually happened the day before. Masamune said there was no problem, though he suspected that Aki might still be upset with him. He just did not mention it. Soon, Tade and the others regrouped and they began heading home. Suddenly, a car sped toward them and stopped in front of the group. Shido stepped out and called for Masamune. She grabbed Masamune's shirt and asked what he had done to Neko, leaving Masamune confused because he did not understand what she meant. Shido explained that Neko had gone missing and that she had been searching everywhere for her. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Taya asked when Neko had disappeared. Kojuro mentioned that Neko had sent her a message that morning. Shido added that Neko was still fine the night before when she called her from Kyoto, but when Shido returned that morning, Neko's room was empty. Masamune said it could not be confirmed that Neko had run away. Shido insisted that Neko had left her medical supplies behind, which meant she was not simply out for a walk. Masamune asked if Neko was sick. Shido was surprised that Masamune did not realize it, considering how close he was to her. Ordinary people would not take so many medications, she said. Masamune recalled the times Neko had seemed exhausted and even injured, and the time she took vitamins before meals at her apartment. He finally realized that it had been real and wondered why Neko had pretended to be fine. He concluded that she did so to avoid appearing weak in front of others. That was why Neko had presented herself as a mysterious woman, hiding her true character behind a polite smile and gentle way of speaking. Taya commented that Neko's situation at the time must have been serious. Shido said they needed to find Neko immediately. She asked Masamune to honestly explain what had happened yesterday, knowing that he had gone to Neko's apartment alone. Everyone, especially Aki, was shocked to hear this. Masamune felt unsure of what to say but knew he had to be honest. He admitted that he had turned Neko down and explained that he could not date her because he was already with Aki. When Shido asked Masamune what he had done with Neko, Masamune explained that he had rejected Neko because he was already with Aki. Aki suggested that they try to locate Neko first by tracking her phone with GPS, but Shido mentioned that Neko had left both her phone and wallet in her apartment, so tracking was not possible. Aki was confident that Neko could not have gone far and suggested that they split up to search for her quickly. Their friends agreed to help. Aki asked Shido to take them to the area around Neko's apartment. Shido invited them into his car while Aki told anyone who could not fit in the car to search with Masamune, as she was sure he would know where to look. Tada and Kojuro joined the car ride. Yoshino mentioned that she had just realized Masamune had gone to Neko's apartment. Masamune explained that he did it to accelerate progress as Yoshino had requested. Yoshino was surprised by his action and quickly got into the car, leaving Masamune behind. Masamune was puzzled that Aki had not commented on the incident earlier, taking it as a sign that it was not significant to her. He grew increasingly confused, unsure where to start looking for Neko. Shido drove quickly, and Kojuro asked how they would search since there were no clues. Masamune reasoned that because Neko had left without her wallet, she was likely somewhere close, easily accessible, and cool. Tae and the others spread out to search. Tae looked near the bookstore, Kojuro at the game center, Shido in the relaxation areas, and Yoshino by the river. Yoshino had checked all the cool spots but still had not found Neko. Masamune walked, trying to decide where to begin, thinking the pool might be the first place to check. He assumed Neko was safe. As Masamune approached the school, Aki suddenly called out to him. He was shocked and almost could not believe it, even rubbing his eyes to make sure he was not imagining things. Her confident tone and petite figure convinced him that it was indeed Aki. She asked if he thought Neko might be there. Masamune was surprised to realize that Aki shared the same intuition as he did. Masamune reasoned that since Neko usually traveled by car, she would go somewhere familiar. However, Aki said his guess was likely wrong because she had already checked all the shaded areas, and there were no other places left to search. Masamune assumed Aki disliked Neko and was surprised that she would take the trouble to look for her. Aki explained that she still did not particularly like Neko, but she felt sorry for her because Neko had just been rejected by Masamune. She understood how painful it could be when someone you liked turned you down. Masamune did not know how to respond and wondered why, if Aki knew the feeling so well, she did not reflect on herself. All the boys who tried to approach Aki were given nicknames and rejected outright. He remembered the time he had been abruptly rejected, and it had hurt him deeply. Aki admitted she did not want Neko to feel depressed over the incident. Masamune then asked if Aki remembered him being called a certain nickname before. Aki fell silent. Masamune felt an urge to tell her directly that he had been the one she had rejected. Suddenly, a paper airplane landed on Masamune's head. Both Masamune and Aki looked up to see many paper airplanes flying from the school rooftop. Masamune recalled Neko mentioning that she was interested in a comic in his room and had asked Shido to buy it for her. He immediately ran into the school, sure that Neko had been reading Bara no Hitomi no Steroid. Aki followed him closely. In the comic, the female character had been rejected by her admired senior and enjoyed scenes on the school rooftop. In one scene, the female character made paper airplanes from letters she no longer needed, and the male character came to ask why she was there. Masamune repeated the same words as the comic character, and Neko turned, smiling. She said she had a feeling he would come to find her. Masamune remembered that Neko had liked the rooftop scene in the third volume of the comic. He told Neko to stop as she did not have the energy to imitate the female character anymore. Neko realized this, but then suddenly fainted. Masamune quickly caught her and tried to wake her up. Aki arrived and asked what was happening. Masamune asked her to contact Shido immediately. He was confused about why Neko had pushed herself so hard. He noticed several paper airplanes with messages that said, "I love you." After that, Neko was taken to the hospital. Tae and their friends waited in the waiting room, while Kojuro asked if Neko would be alright. Not long after, Shido arrived. Tae and Kojuro asked about Neko's condition, and Shido explained that Neko was starting to stabilize. Everyone felt relieved. At that moment, Shido requested Eki to visit Neko because she wanted to talk to her briefly. Shido asked Eki not to stay too long given Neko's fragile state. Yoshino commented that it felt like a farewell, and Tae and Kojuro quickly told her not to speak like that. Meanwhile, Masamune was still reflecting on whether his decisions had been wrong. At first he had wavered, but the feeling seemed off and he decided not to turn back, sticking to his original plan. Even if he responded more gently to Neko, it would make a difference, and he was convinced that what he was doing wasn't wrong. At that moment, Aki informed Masamune that Neko wanted to talk to him. Surprised, Masamune became curious about what Aki and Neko had discussed. He went to Neko's room to meet her. Neko invited Masamune to talk about the past. She said that living life felt incredibly beautiful, so she didn't want to hold back any feelings. She remembered that back in middle school, one of her juniors had praised her after her speech as the student council representative. That junior had even invited Neko to her family villa for her birthday, asking earnestly for Neko to join the celebration. Neko had found the junior's sincerity and sweetness endearing and agreed to the invitation. Her junior was overjoyed and grateful, mentioning that the villa had a tennis court and a horseback riding area, so they could play before the party. Some of the junior's friends warned her not to push Neko into playing tennis or riding, considering Neko's condition at the time. One day, Neko's grandfather asked if she would be willing to undergo surgery abroad. Neko asked about her chances of recovery, but her grandfather told her to forget about it. She agreed to give it a try, but with one condition. She wanted to experience love. Neko explained that she had been living on the edge between life and death, knowing there was no real hope for her, but she simply wanted to know what it felt like to be in love. Masamune was puzzled as to why it had to be him. Neko revealed that his photo had been chosen at random from a pile of potential male candidates. Masamune was shocked to hear this, insisting he had never signed up to be a potential boyfriend. According to Neko, such things were normal among children from wealthy families. Masamune suspected it must have been his mother's doing. If that were the case, it was understandable that he had failed to investigate Neko's background. Neko explained that Yoshino had an incredibly sharp intuition, but she couldn't read the thoughts of someone whose life had been fragile like hers. Masamune asked how Neko felt after pursuing love. She admitted that she had enjoyed the efforts she had made, and she felt that Masamune was similar to her. Both of them had discussed love and affection as if that were their goal, but behind it, reality was emptier than it seemed, eventually revealing itself as just a performance. Despite this, Neko had no regrets. Even though unrequited love had hurt her when rejected, she had genuinely felt everything. Neko asked if Masamune would continue his own performance and whether he would end up like her, but Masamune avoided answering. Neko smiled, feeling tired from telling her story. She said she planned to go somewhere far away once she recovered. Before leaving, she thanked Masamune for all the memories they had shared. While waiting in the lounge, Tae admitted that she was curious about what Neko and Masamune were talking about. Suddenly, she revealed that she actually liked Masamune and wondered if that would surprise Yoshino. In truth, Yoshino had already suspected it. Tae expressed regret for not being brave enough to honestly share her feelings, but she thought it might be better to keep them to herself in order to maintain good friendships with everyone. She hoped Neko would not face the same situation. Kojuro had been feeling surprised and uncomfortable listening to their conversation the whole time. Tae felt that Masamune seemed to like Aki and became curious about Aki's feelings toward him. Yoshino noticed Aki buying a drink from the vending machine and was sure that Aki's stomach could no longer handle her hunger, even though Yoshino had reminded her to hold off for a while. At that moment, Masamune headed to the lounge. Aki greeted him immediately, but Masamune acted indifferent and left soon after. Shido arrived at Neko's room to inform her that her friends had already gone home. Looking through the window, Shibu asked if Neko was sure she would let Masamune leave just like that. Neko felt that what Masamune said made sense, especially since he had made her recall certain memories. It turned out that Masamune had taken a photo with Neko when they were children. While crossing the street, Masamune remembered Meiko's words about how they were similar, both talking about love and affection as if that was the ultimate goal. Yet behind that appearance, there was another truth. A reality that was empty, which would eventually be revealed if it was only a facade and the feelings remained unreciprocated. Masamune thought that there had always been something odd about Neko, which made him unable to fully trust her. He wondered if he would eventually seem the same way, just like Neko had suggested, pretending or putting on an act. Feeling anxious, he tried to shake off his doubts and convinced himself that he could make Aki like him while planning to reject her in the most calculated way. That night, Miruno saw Aki about to leave the house and asked where she was going. Aki said she was just heading to the park. She lay down on a park bench thinking about Neko's words, reminding her not to be so defensive because Masamune was a sincere person. Aki wondered why she had been resisting those feelings. She realized it was not about love at first glance, yet her face flushed suddenly. She also realized the misunderstanding about the underwear incident had been nothing serious and acknowledged that she probably did like Masamune. However, she tried to push the thought away, thinking of Masamune as a silly, oblivious person whose words were mostly playful. To Aki, true love was what she had felt during her childhood. The chubby, adorable cheeks, and the way the little rolls on someone's belly made her want to pinch them. It was truly cute. Suddenly, she heard someone laughing nearby. Meanwhile, at Masamune's house, Kinue began to cry upon seeing Masamune about to leave with his bag. Chinatsu approached Kinue and asked what was happening. Kinue said she could not believe Masamune would leave home at 17. Chinatsu thought Kinue was overreacting as her older brother probably only intended to go for a jog like usual. Masamune indeed wanted to go train because he had been feeling naive lately and needed to continue with his original plan. Chinatsu did not understand what Masamune was talking about. He wanted to reduce unnecessary fat to build new muscle and improve his appearance. He grabbed his bag and left the house. Meanwhile, a man approached Aki and apologized for startling her. Aki asked who he really was. The man asked her to guess. He stepped closer and Aki's face turned red, suspecting that he might be Masamune. The man extended his hand in greeting and remarked that it had been a long time since they last met. One evening, while Aki was relaxing in the park, a young man suddenly appeared, asking her to guess who he was. Aki suspected that he might be Masamune. That night, the maids had gathered due to an unexpected situation. The young man who approached Aki wanted to meet the master of a house and handed over a letter from his grandfather. Yoshino's father opened the letter and read it aloud. The letter revealed that Teijin Adagaki had promised Kanetsugu Gasu, the 15th generation, that her grandchild, the 17th generation heir, would be married to his descendant. Yoshino's father was stunned by the contents of the letter, and Aki also learned about this for the first time. It turned out the young man was Kanetsugu Gasu, the 17th generation. Kanetsugu introduced herself and greeted everyone, while Yoshino immediately informed Masamune over the phone. Meanwhile, Masamune had been training from the early hours until sunrise. That day was the first day after summer vacation. Aki headed to school with Yoshino. As they were walking, a male student named Ryota suddenly confronted her and asked Aki to go out with him. Aki was puzzled at why some boys always acted as if they were more special than anyone else. Without hesitation, she wrote something on Ryota's shirt, giving him a nickname that embarrassed him. Shocked, Ryota shouted while Aki felt she had firmly put things in their proper place. The marker Aki used was permanent, which left Ryota extremely frustrated. Sonoka and Kikume praised Aki for her confidence even though Ryota had been a key player on the school's baseball team, almost making it to the Kashin finals but failing at the last hurdle. Sonoka mentioned that Ryota was impressive, but Kikune argued that Aki's action was even more remarkable and deserved admiration. Kikune, who is 2 years younger than Sonoka, practiced kendo. Aki commented that Sonoka and Kikune were still the same as before. Sonoka then asked if Aki was certain about rejecting the first guy who approached her this semester, especially since he was a potential Kashin player. Aki calmly said that Ryota had retired from the team and was now inconsequential. Hearing this, Sonoka and Kikune cheered, confirming that Aki was indeed elegant and impressive. Sonoka and Kikume continued to praise Aki, noting that she had the courage to reject suitors of all types. Aki asked them not to exaggerate, insisting that she had always been this way. Suddenly, Mary appeared and asked if Aki was still the same, pointing out that Aki had been spending less time with them lately and more with Masamune. Aki hesitated, stammering in response. Mary even mentioned that she knew about Aki's summer vacation from a social media post by Ta. Sonoka and Kikume were shocked and could hardly believe it. Aki admitted that Masamune had persuaded her to join the vacation, as initially she had only planned to invite Kojoro. Mary emphasized that Kojoro was also a male student and expressed surprise that Aki could have changed her ways. Sonoka and Kikume shared their curiosity about seeing Aki at the beach, especially on a private island. At that moment, Kanetsugu arrived, commenting on her surprise that Aki owned a private beach and expressing interest in being invited. Aki's friends were confused by Kanetsugu's bold friendliness, but assumed that Kojoro might soon experience Aki's assertive side, possibly becoming the next target in the new semester. Unexpectedly, Aki said she would consider it, shocking everyone, especially as she and Kanetsugu seemed unusually close while walking to class. Her friends still could not believe that Aki, who had rejected famous actors and top athletes, even giving a nickname to a University of Tokyo student, could suddenly be so friendly with a new male student. Mary concluded that she, Sonoka, and Kikume had misjudged Aki, realizing that she was not as strict as they thought. That morning, Aki walked confidently, smiling and greeting her classmates. She was surprised to see Nico in her class. Nico explained that she was still a student there. Masamune, curious, asked about her recovery since she was supposed to be abroad for surgery. Miko calmly described the procedure, mentioning that she had been treated for a month and was only allowed to return home safely the previous day. Masamune found it strange that she spoke so casually while he had been worried about her. Neko asked Masamune about his relationship with Eki. Nervously, he explained that he had been busy training all month, which Nico interpreted as meaning that no progress had been made since then. Masamune admitted that he often remembered something Nico had said previously. Looking out the window, Nico warned that if he took too long, someone else might step in. At that moment, Masamune noticed Aki walking with another boy. He laughed, confident that the boy could not compete with him. Nico commented on how thin Masamune had become, though he felt it made him more masculine. After class, Kojoro invited Masamune to walk home together, but Masamune asked him to go ahead, saying he needed to deliver a gift to Aki. Carrying the package, Masamune walked toward Aki's classroom, feeling confident and eager for her reaction. Entering the classroom, he felt he looked his best among all the students. Masamune intended to give Aki a gift of pure sorghum flour ground in Shinshu. At that time, Aki was chatting with Kanetsugu and Masamune was shocked to hear Kanetsugu address Aki so casually. Masamune asked who the person next to Aki was. Kanetsugu introduced herself and explained that she had just transferred to Yasaka High School that day. Masamune introduced himself and shook hands with Kanetsugu. Upon hearing Masamune's name, Kanetsugu mentioned that Aki usually called him Masamune and requested that Aki address her by her real name so that things would not get confusing at school. Masamune whispered to Kanetsugu, asking if she and Aki were related. Kanetsugu clarified that she was actually engaged to Aki. Masamune was stunned and found it hard to believe. He immediately pulled Yoshino out of class and brought her to the sports equipment storage room. Yoshino urged Masamune to calm down, but it was impossible for him to stay composed in such a situation. He demanded an explanation about the engagement. It turned out that Yoshino had tried to contact Masamune earlier, but his phone had no signal because he was in the mountains at the time. Yoshino admitted that she had been equally surprised. She explained that Kanetsugu had brought a will, which had been verified as authentic through signature analysis. Yoshino informed Masamune that for the time being, Kanetsugu would be staying at Aki's house. Masamune was taken aback that they were already living together and wondered if the situation felt like something out of a novel, a visual novel, or a glamorous series. Masamune questioned whether Aki would ever agree to an engagement considering her strong dislike of men. Yoshino thought the same, but surprisingly, Aki had agreed. Yoshino noted that Aki's behavior seemed strange, or perhaps she had actually fallen in love. Hearing this, Masamune felt even more confused. Masamune also never expected that Kanetsugu, who was only 160 centimeters tall and weighed 63 kilograms, making her somewhat short and slightly heavy, could be so skilled in sports. Moreover, Kanetsugu was academically talented without being arrogant and was always willing to share her knowledge with others. She was friendly and easy to get along with, both with boys and girls, and she had a particularly close relationship with Aki. That afternoon, Masamune went to the amusement park with Yoshino. He appeared very frustrated, wondering how everything had turned out this way. Yoshino mentioned that it seemed Kanetsugu had met Aki when they were children. Masamune commented that Kanetsugu had a soft, slightly pudgy body, whereas he had been harshly criticized by Aki for gaining weight. Masamune speculated that perhaps Aki had consumed too many calories and that it had affected her judgment. According to Yoshino, a woman's heart was like autumn, but Masamune still could not accept the situation. Yoshino apologized to Masamune, but he insisted that she did not need to apologize. Meanwhile, Mary met with Sonoka and Kikume at a cafe. The three of them talked about Aki. Sonoka admitted that she could not understand Aki's way of thinking, and Kikume commented that Aki had always been mysterious, even never joining them for lunch. Mary felt it was unfair for them to be upset over a misunderstanding that was really their own fault. At the same time, she felt hurt by the perceived betrayal and struggled to contain her emotions. Mary even had the urge to find a high place to release her frustration. Sonoka tried to calm Mary down, showing more concern for her friend than for Aki or her partner. They jokingly referred to Aki and their circle as a sacred lesbian kingdom. Not long after, Kanetsugu arrived and asked if she could join them. The three were surprised by her sudden appearance. Kikume immediately reacted and tried to drive Kanetsugu away. Mary urged Kikume to handle the situation. Kikume prepared to swing her kendo stick toward Kanetsugu, but Kanetsugu stopped her, explaining that there had been a misunderstanding and that she had something important to share with them. The next day, Ta was leading a meeting in her class to plan the Yasaka festival. She scolded Masamune for not paying attention, since he had been reading a book the whole time. Ta explained to her classmates that their class's plan for the festival was to put on a Snow White play, with the beautiful Kojuro as Snow White and Masamune as the prince. The other students thought the idea was amazing, but Kojuro was confused about why she had to play the lead female role. Still, the students agreed with the decision and Kojuro reluctantly accepted it. Masamune was not particularly concerned about the play. His mind was focused elsewhere, on Kanetsugu. During the break, he saw Aki walking down the hallway and quickly grabbed her hand, cornering her against the wall. He did this intentionally because Aki was difficult to get through to. Aki said there was nothing more to discuss, but Masamune insisted on talking. Aki again leaned close to his face, making him nervous. She pointed out that his pants were unzipped, which startled Masamune. And then she quickly ran away. He chased her, but Aki went into class with Kanetsugu. At that moment, Mary, Sonoka, and Kikume saw what happened. They were shocked that Masamune would act like that toward Aki. Mary even called him rude and disrespectful, believing that their decision to keep Aki safe was correct. They felt Aki was better protected with Kanetsugu. Earlier, Kanetsugu had told them that she was engaged to Aki, but did not plan to pursue the relationship further. Kanetsugu said that Aki was like an angel and no one had the right to treat her carelessly. Kojuro also understood this and made sure not to overstep any boundaries with Aki. Hearing Kanetsugu's words, Mary and her friends discussed how to prioritize Aki's safety, believing she was safest with Kojuro. They were worried that Masamune might cause trouble if left unchecked. Seeing Masamune corner Aki frustrated them, and they regarded him as someone who needed to be restrained. That afternoon, the student council held a meeting to review the festival programs. Sonoka, as vice president, also attended. She was surprised when she saw the program forms because both Class 2A and Class 2B had submitted proposals to perform Snow White. The student council president decided to give permission to Class 2B since they submitted first, but Sonoka insisted that Class 2 should be allowed instead. She ignored the president's opinion and pushed for Class 2A to host the play. When Tai learned that her class's proposal was rejected, she was frustrated. Time was short to come up with a new idea, and she could not understand why their proposal had been denied. The student council said that their decision was final, so Tai immediately went to Class 2A to protest. Masamune was surprised by her determination. Neko remarked that sometimes strong emotions could cloud one's judgment. Masamune followed Tai and saw her debating with Mary. Mary was firm that only her class, with Aki and Kanetsugu as the leads, deserved to perform Snow White. Amid the argument, Aki appeared and pointed out that Class 2B had been rejected by the council, and that their male leads would likely fail. Ta commented that it would be strange if the prince were overweight. Seeing the commotion, Kanetsugu asked everyone to calm down and reminded Aki to consider Ta's feelings since her class proposal had just been rejected. Aki blushed, which irritated Masamune. He suggested that both classes should compete and the winner would be decided by a vote. Tae agreed, excited at the idea of a drama duel. Aki also agreed, believing it would be a fair way to judge. The student council approved the suggestion since both sides agreed, officially making the competition official. Tae was confident that Class 2B would not lose to Class 2A. Masamune told Kanetsugu that the winning class should have the right to choose the dance partners for the festival finale, and Kanetsugu agreed. With that, Masamune became even more determined to win. On that day, Class 2B was rehearsing for their Snow White play. Tae was dissatisfied with their performance and scolded them. She reminded everyone that the performance was scheduled for the next day, and they weren't the only class performing Snow White. If Kojuro's acting wasn't up to par, their class would be outshined by Class 2A. Kojuro admitted she had done her best, but Tae continued to berate her, even throwing an ashtray. Masamune, who was watching, was surprised by how angry Tae was. Taya questioned if Kojuro was only going to perform the awakening scene, implying that was all she was capable of. She belittled Kojuro's acting, and Masamune was taken aback by Taya's harshness. Kojuro, in tears, ran out, declaring she wasn't a girl. She was astonished by how terrifying women could be. As she exited the room, she nearly collided with Neko in the corridor. Neko apologized, mentioning that her costume was ready and she had taken it to the gymnasium. She was eager to see the play the next day. Kojuro said she had some errands to run, and Neko reminded her to return soon. Kojuro admired Neko for always being sweet and smiling, especially since Neko didn't treat her like a girl. Not long after, Masamune was searching for Kojuro on the school grounds, even tempting her with pudding. Soon, Kanetsugu approached and asked if Class 2B was also doing a dress rehearsal. Kanetsugu remarked that sweet foods were perfect when tired, but Masamune disagreed, saying too many sweets could lead to weight gain. Kanetsugu mentioned that Aki was very happy when she gave her chocolate during break, and her reaction was very sweet. Masamune was surprised to hear that. Kanetsugu believed that small gestures like that made people happy, rather than suddenly cornering someone against a wall just because it was a trend in magazines, which she thought had a bad effect. She was puzzled that Masamune didn't understand that. Masamune became annoyed seeing Kanetsugu acting all wise about love, especially since her body was so big. He even doubted if Kanetsugu was a real man. Kanetsugu left after encouraging him, and Masamune grew more disgusted, feeling like she thought she would win tomorrow. Masamune was determined to win the play the next day and also become Aki's dance partner at the end of the festival. Meanwhile, Mari and her friends wouldn't let Masamune and the others win the play. That afternoon, Aki and Kanetsugu walked home together. Aki encouraged them to do their best for the performance the next day. Kanetsugu mentioned meeting Masamune earlier, but Aki didn't want to talk about him. Kanetsugu quickly apologized for making Aki feel bad. Aki realized she shouldn't have gotten angry over something trivial. Kanetsugu admitted he was the one who was insensitive. Aki realized that Kanetsugu had always been a good person. She invited Kanetsugu to buy crepes at the food truck. At that moment, Kanetsugu felt he didn't deserve to say that. He actually felt bad, but was forced to do it. Kanetsugu's family had been living in poverty for years, and he was responsible for improving their financial situation. At the party, Midori met Kanetsugu and mistook him for the person who used to hang out with Aki because he looked similar to young Masamune. Kanetsugu thought he couldn't fail. If it was just about Masamune, it might be a small problem, but the real issue was if he met the real Masamune, who was fat and often bullied. That night, Masamune was exercising at home when he sneezed, certain that someone was talking about him. However, Chinatsu thought it was because Masamune was exercising shirtless. Masamune told Chinatsu not to comment on his workout. Not long after, Masamune sneezed again, and Chinatsu was sure he had caught a cold. She immediately shouted to tell her mother. Kinyue came rushing in and wrapped him up, not wanting Masamune to get sick. She bundled him in a blanket and laid him on the bed. The next day, the Yasaka festival began. Students crowded around the booths, but what they were most excited about was the Snow White drama showdown between Class 2A and 2B. The audience cheered in anticipation. Sonoka opened the Yasaka festival, announcing that the theme was explosion, urging the audience to explode with enthusiasm to become the first place. At that moment, Masamune sneezed repeatedly. Kojuro and Tae were concerned about him, but Masamune insisted he was in perfect condition. Tae encouraged them to defeat Class 2A. Masamune realized he shouldn't have done what he did last night. He had stood on the roof shirtless, shouting that he was truly healthy. The next day, he caught a cold for real because of it. Masamune did not want to rest because that day was more than just the duel between Class 2A and 2B. After Sonoka officially opened the 41st Yasaka festival, the students cheered loudly. At that moment, Masamune initially intended to rest until it was time for the performance, but Neko quickly caught up with him. She invited Aki to join them for a walk since there were many places she wanted to see. Masamune could not refuse, even though he really wanted to take a break. Unexpectedly, Neko led him to the student infirmary and asked him to sit on a bed. She noticed that Masamune had a fever. Masamune was surprised that Neko had realized his condition from the start. She suggested that he take a short rest to recover faster. Masamune apologized for troubling her, but Neko smiled and said she would even prefer that he slept soundly until the performance ended. She explained jokingly that it was better this way because if Masamune won, he would have to dance with Aki at the end of the festival. Neko reassured him that she was only teasing, as she would never betray the students of Class 2B. She admitted that she would not mind being Masamune's dance partner if he lost after trying his best, feeling sorry for him if he were left alone. After that, Neko went to buy some snacks and reminded Masamune to rest well. Unbeknownst to them, Kikune was watching from a distance. Less than an hour remained before Class 2A's performance, and the students hurried to change into their costumes. Aki noticed her costume felt too loose around the chest area, so Mary helped her adjust it with padding. Aki felt ticklish and laughed as Mary helped her. At that moment, Kanetsugu opened the dressing room door and was shocked to see students still changing. The students immediately threw things at her and Kanetsugu was taken aback. She had not expected the girls to be so aggressive, even though she just wanted to change her clothes. Luckily, shortly after, students dressed as witches appeared and showed Kanetsugu a dressing area. Meanwhile, Kojuro was walking around checking out the festival stalls. He thought that it seemed Meiko really liked Masamune, but he realized he could not be like Masamune to earn her attention. Kojuro decided he wanted to talk to Neiko, hoping to act a little more confidently, even if he could not be Masamune. He saw Neiko buying snacks at a stall and approached her, offering to carry her food while assuring her that he was capable as a young man. Neiko was confused by his words and Kojuro quickly apologized. Together, Neiko and Kojuro went to the student infirmary to bring some odd-hen soup for Masamune, but when they arrived, he was not on the bed. They asked Tae if she had seen him, but she had not. Neiko began to suspect that Masamune was nowhere to be found. It turned out someone had hidden Masamune in a storage room. He woke up and started to crawl out of the blanket. As he tried to leave, Kikume opened the door after hearing him shout. Masamune called for help, but Kikume blocked him with a stick, warning him to stay put. When the lights were turned on, Masamune realized that Kikume had trapped him intentionally. Kikume had acted while Neiko was out buying snacks, leaving Masamune unable to escape. Meanwhile, Neiko and Tae searched everywhere for him but could not find him. Neiko reminded everyone that Masamune just wanted to rest before the performance. Tae panicked and jokingly wondered if Masamune had been taken by a UFO. Neiko hoped he would return safely, even if he had been moved from his spot. Kojuro checked the toilets and dressing rooms but found no sign of Masamune. He found it strange that he kept encountering Class 2 as students who seemed unusually anxious despite the performance being so close. Masamune called Kikune to check the situation and told her to follow his instructions. Kikune admitted that she had deliberately confined him, asking him to stay put until Aki and Kanetsugu finished their dance as a punishment for getting close to Aki. Masamune realized that Kikune was trying to make him fail the performance. At the same time, Tae wondered if Class 2A might be behind a scheme, though Kojuro clarified he was not accusing them. He just noticed that they appeared panicked, even though the performance was about to start. Mary was confident that Class 2B could not win without Masamune and was relieved that Aki would not be approached by him. Unexpectedly, Kanetsugu also disappeared. Aki was puzzled because Kanetsugu had been wandering nearby earlier. Some Class 2A students searched for her but could not find her. Replacing the prince for the performance was impossible since none of the boys in Class 2 fit the costume. Aki could not understand why Kanetsugu went missing at such a crucial time. The students of Class 2A immediately started searching again. Mary realized that she had underestimated Class 2B, who seemed to have planned a similar strategy as her own. Yoshino left the classroom and tried to contact Masamune. It turned out that the student dressed as a witch earlier was Yoshino. She informed that there was a room for Kanetsugu to change costumes, but she immediately locked the door as soon as Kanetsugu entered. Yoshino wanted to report to Masamune, but her call went unanswered. She began to worry that something bad might have happened to him. Meanwhile, Masamune pretended to be in pain and asked Kikume to call the doctor. However, Kikume was not fooled by his act. She insisted that Masamune stay still and forbade him from approaching Aki after the festival. Kikume explained that she had the right to issue such orders because she was Aki's bodyguard. She recalled that back in middle school, no one could defeat her in kendo, the training hall, but one day she was cheated and defeated by a boy named Towarada. After practice, Towarada changed his clothes and confessed his love to Aki in front of the school. Aki smiled and called him a coward for declaring his feelings without introducing himself first. Witnessing this blunt rejection, Kikume was impressed by Aki. She was thrilled that the cheater was defeated without Aki having to be involved and called it a form of justice. Masamune commented that even the bodyguard of the Hand of Justice was cheating, which surprised Kikume. He explained that if she wanted to win fairly, there would have been no need to abduct him. His words hit the mark. Masamune admitted that Sonoka and Mary had asked him to use that method, leaving Kikume conflicted. Eventually, Aki untied Masamune. Shortly after, Kikume's phone rang. Mary explained that she wanted to speak with Masamune. Kikume handed him the phone. Mary identified herself as the Class 2 president and Aki's bodyguard. She requested that their duel be considered a tie, promising to release Masamune while also asking for her own hostage to be freed. Masamune did not fully understand, but he suspected that Yoshino might be behind it. He admitted to knowing nothing about it. Masamune asked which class should perform first if both had hostages, but he did not worry, as his class was scheduled for the afternoon. He simply waited for his classmates to arrive and quickly ended the call. At that moment, Masamune managed to turn the situation around. He had nearly lost earlier, but by then, Class 2A's position was in checkmate, marking a key part of his revenge plan against Aki. Mary was furious that Masamune had dared to threaten her, but suddenly Aki appeared and invited Mary to the gymnasium. Aki explained that the performance had to proceed immediately, even though Kanetsugu had not been found. She would have to perform alone without her prince, remarking that it was pointless to rely on a prince because it had always been that way. Meanwhile, Masamune waited to see how the students of Class 2A would react. Kikune panicked, and soon Mary sent a message to Kikune, asking her to help find Kanetsugu and leave Masamune. Kikune realized that Kanetsugu had also disappeared and suspected that Masamune and his friends had used some trick. Feeling betrayed, Kikune tried to strike Masamune with her kendo stick. Masamune dodged, almost falling out of a window. Tae and Kojuro were still searching for Masamune when they heard Kikune's shout. They looked up and saw him above. As Kikune jumped to attack, Masamune held onto the wall and Kikune, not noticing him, fell into a pond. Tae and Kojuro quickly rescued her. Tae was shocked to learn that Masamune had indeed been taken by Class 2A, and Masamune himself did not understand how it had happened. He reassured Tae that there was no need to be upset because the important thing was that he was safe. Moreover, Class 2A would not be able to perform without Kanetsugu, meaning Class 2B would ultimately win. Kojuro noted that Class 2A had already started their performance, and if Masamune's suspicions were correct, they were performing without their prince. Surprised, Masamune ran to see for himself, puzzled by what Aki might be thinking. Masamune immediately went to the theater to watch Class 2A perform. The drama had just begun and Aki was acting in a scene where she entered the dwarf's house. Masamune noticed that the costumes and stage design looked very professional and the audience was packed. Aki and her friends even performed a dance as part of the drama. Neko, who was sitting next to Masamune, asked whether Class 2B still had a chance of winning. Masamune admitted that he wasn't sure they could surpass Class 2A's performance because not only was Snow White impressive, but the other acting skills were also above average. He was even curious how many times they had practiced to make it look so polished. At that moment, Mary asked whether Masamune enjoyed the performance. He asked if Kanetsugu had been found yet. Mary explained that Kanetsugu was still missing, and there was no replacement actor because none of the boys in their class fit Kanetsugu's costume. Masamune then asked why Class 2 had decided to go ahead with the drama. It turned out that Aki had insisted on performing despite the absence of the prince. Earlier, Aki had informed her friends that Kanetsugu was still missing. She felt that everyone had already practiced harder than the other classes, including the woodcutters, castle guards, the queen, and others. It would be disappointing not to perform, so she asked anyone who wasn't busy to help find the prince. They planned to give their best performance, hoping for a miracle, until the last minute. Then Aki began the play. Mary commented to Masamune that Aki was not the type to back down from a challenge. She asked whether Masamune felt satisfied seeing the drama risk failing if Kanetsugu remained missing. She noted that Masamune's plan seemed successful and then left. Masamune wanted to follow her but felt too weak to move. He noticed Aki delivering a line saying she would not cry and would not give up. She would keep fighting with her head held high. Masamune thought that Kanetsugu probably needed Yoshino's help to be freed, but then he realized Yoshino was on stage and he didn't know how to ask for assistance. Neko approached Masamune, worried about his condition, but he insisted he was fine. He reflected that the chaos was not caused by him but by the situation itself. Masamune began thinking of a way to make Class 2's drama end happily. He whispered something to Neko, who was shocked but agreed to help him. Neko quickly left to carry out Masamune's request. Masamune then approached Mary. She initially thought he had come to mock them, but he offered to step in as the prince so the drama could continue. At that point, Snow White's scene unfolded, where she had fallen after eating a poisoned apple. The dwarfs mourned her. Aki was lying in the coffin, thinking that Kanetsugu still had not been found despite everyone performing at their best. She had accepted that the drama might end with Snow White's death, making the story more realistic. Aki remembered her childhood when she had waited for young Masamune and realized she might need to stop hoping for a prince. Suddenly, Masamune's voice rang out on stage, delivering the prince's lines. Everyone, including Aki, was shocked by his sudden appearance. Tae and Kojuro were equally surprised to see Masamune performing with Class 2A. All eyes were on him. Masamune felt his body burning with effort, but he could not back down. Beforehand, Masamune had informed Mary and the other Class 2 members that he would replace Kanetsugu to finish the play. Mary wondered if he realized what he was saying, considering their classes were rivals. Masamune admitted that he also wanted to win, but the performance of Class 2A should not end tragically. When Mary asked if he was helping purely for the sake of the play's perfection, Masamune confirmed that he was. On stage, Masamune struggled to keep up with the play's flow and complete the story. His body was weak, but his determination pushed him forward. The dwarfs understood and continued their lines. At one point, Masamune collapsed, shocking the audience. Mary was puzzled by his actions. The dwarfs gathered to help the prince. Masamune explained that he was exhausted from the long journey. Mary looked upset, seeing the prince so weak. Kikume arrived and told Mary that she had been ill and running a high temperature. Mary realized this and understood that Masamune's actions were not meant to disrupt the drama, but were genuine efforts to save it. Masamune's body was already weak, but he kept pushing himself to finish the drama. Mary hoped that he could hold on until the performance ended. Masamune walked toward the coffin, continuously encouraging himself not to collapse. Just as he was about to fall, Yoshino supported him from behind, surprising Masamune. Yoshino even warned him not to mess up the drama. She gently guided him toward the coffin, and Masamune continued moving forward to complete the final scene. When he reached the coffin, he was completely exhausted. Aki wondered why Masamune was taking so long with the last scene. Masamune then pulled Aki close and kissed her. He held the kiss longer than expected, which made Aki struggle to pull away. In the end, she had to push him back lightly to break free. The audience cheered, and Aki felt guilty for reacting that way. The dwarves continued their joyful performance around the Sino princess, and the drama concluded happily, with the princess living cheerfully in the forest alongside the prince and the dwarfs. Neko was moved by the heartwarming ending, and the audience applauded as the play came to an end. Kanetsuba arrived shortly after the performance concluded. The next day, Masamune, Aki, and their friends went to a family karaoke outing. Sonoka mentioned that the Yasaka festival had ended successfully the previous day. The favorite winner of the audience vote was Class 2A for their Snow Princess performance, while Class 2B could not perform due to their final ranking. As a result, Class 2A won the drama duel, and the awards for most popular male and female went to Masamune and Aki. Tae felt this was unfair because Class 2A's performance had succeeded largely thanks to Masamune acting on his own, and Masamune had been taken to the student infirmary immediately after the drama. She was disappointed that her script had not turned out as planned. Masamune apologized sincerely. Kanetsu had offered to replace Masamune, but Tae refused, believing that not everyone was fit to be Kojoro's duet partner. Aki suggested letting go of the past and wondered why everyone had gathered in such a small space. Tae explained that she and her friends had arranged a post-festival event there, and since Class 2B had no other available rooms, they were sharing the space. Sonoka proposed resolving the rivalry with a singing duel. Aki thought it might be pointless since the winner was already obvious, but Tae accepted the challenge, with the agreement that the loser would cover the costs. The singing duel began with Sonoka acting as the referee. Tae volunteered to go first and asked Masamune to pick a song for her. He struggled to operate the song selection device, so Kojoro stepped in to help. Eventually, the song was ready and Tae confidently performed. Everyone was impressed by her melodious singing, and she scored 82, celebrating her achievement with her friends. Neko complimented Tae's beautiful performance. Next, Aki took her turn and chose a song titled Snow Flower. Her friends were touched by her performance and she scored 89. Kanetsugu praised Aki for her remarkable singing, though Aki humbly said it was not her best performance. Tae felt frustrated seeing her score surpassed by Aki's. The group continued to take turns performing their chosen songs. When it was Neko's turn, Kojoro encouraged her before she sang. Neko performed a song called Farewell My Beloved, explaining that the melancholic lyrics reflected her feelings at the time. Masamune almost spat out his drink in surprise, feeling the situation had become awkward. Kikume asked Sonoka if she had any other plans. Sonoka guessed that Masamune was not used to singing at karaoke. Kikume assumed the same, noting his stiff behavior. Sonoka thought it was a perfect opportunity to make Masamune appear clumsy and pitiable in front of Aki, hoping it might annoy her. Next, it was Yoshino's turn. She chose an old song titled Through the Imagi Passage. Masamune was surprised by Yoshino's performance. The tune was not off-key, but he did not expect the song to sound so different when sung by her. At that moment, Kojoro asked Masamune to make his choice again. Masamune headed toward the restroom, but as he came out, Sonoka and Kikume blocked his way. They suspected he might be trying to escape because he did not want to appear vulnerable in front of Aki. Sonoka mentioned that karaoke should be an ordinary activity for Masamune, and Kikume admitted she was excited to hear him sing. Soon after, Aki arrived and scolded Sonoka and Kikume for intimidating one of the participants despite being the event organizers. She told them to return to the room. Masamune was touched that Aki had stepped out just to support him and expressed his gratitude. Aki told him he did not need to thank her and suggested they go back to the room since it would be his turn soon. As Aki and Masamune entered the room, Aki was surprised to hear the opening theme of Had Appear playing. It turned out that Neko had chosen the song. Aki looked annoyed when Neko asked for the microphone, something Masamune noticed immediately. Neko invited Aki to do it with her. Together, Aki and Neko delivered an impressive performance, leaving their friends in awe. Kanetsugu was wide-eyed, Yoshino played an instrument along with them, and everyone enjoyed the beautiful singing. When the song ended, the group applauded. The Had-Appear theme brought back childhood memories. Aki admitted that the original version by Whitening was the coolest, but Neko argued that the sunscreen version was better. They could never seem to agree. Next, it was Masamune's turn to perform. He sang a song called Elemental World. As he sang, Yoshino called the karaoke staff for assistance. Their friends were completely captivated by Masamune's performance. He realized that singing could burn calories around 15 kal, equivalent to 50 sit-ups. After karaoke, Masamune sat on a park bench with Aki. He mentioned that he had just learned singing could burn calories and planned to include karaoke in his physical training. At that time, Yoshino was out shopping, and Aki was surprised Masamune was still nearby even though she was already drained from dealing with him. Masamune explained that he would leave once Yoshino returned, because it could be risky for a girl to be alone there in the late afternoon. However, he was confident that if any other guy approached, Aki would drive him away immediately. Masamune just wanted to make sure nothing bad happened again like before. Reluctantly, Aki agreed. Masamune reminded her that she had not thanked him yet, which confused Aki. She said she had already apologized back then and that Masamune had willingly handled the scissors himself. She teased him for always acting as he pleased, especially during the cultural festival. Aki felt slightly awkward thinking about the festival and asked what Masamune really wanted as repayment. Masamune was surprised by Aki's humility and wondered why the sadistic princess was being so modest. He suspected it was a trap and that Aki's true intentions would soon show. Then he boldly asked Aki to give him a kiss. Aki was shocked by the request. Masamune hesitated, wondering if he had gone too far or if his request was too heavy. Unexpectedly, Aki agreed but asked him to close his eyes first. Masamune complied. Aki leaned in and instructed him not to open his eyes. Masamune felt nervous and worried about his expression, wondering if he looked too excited. Just as he was bracing himself, instead of a kiss, Aki playfully pressed a piece of food against his lips. Masamune felt a brief, surprising warmth and realized he had been tricked. Aki explained that sharing her food was repayment enough, as she had given him half of her precious meal. She then called Yoshino and suggested it was time to head home. Once Aki left, Yoshino remarked that Masamune always seemed to lose his nerve even when he was so close to getting his revenge. She teased that Masamune could have kissed Aki first instead of waiting. Masamune realized just how close Aki's lips had been to his. Yoshino called him silly and left. Masamune was frustrated at always failing, but he vowed that next time he would find a way to win Aki's affection, especially with the upcoming school trip.